Shalom, everyone.
Shalom.
Thanks for joining the show. Appreciate it.
Shalom and welcome back. Yes, it's me and Mark. We're going to go through. Last week when I was doing our recording, we noticed I made a silly mistake, confusing 5 weeks and 5 days, 550 days, and the Lag BaOmer with Ascension. So today I'm going to correct that, and I've got some. I'm going to read through the resurrection narrative again. Of course, this is still what we are on. This is the second week now from as I said, it's now actually the third week of the Omer, and the resurrection story takes place at the end of the first week of counting the Omer. Okay, so this is very important. It's the end of the first week of counting the Omer. So the resurrection takes place on the 22nd of the Hebrew month of Nisan, Aviv. And I'm going to be talking about it from the Judaic perspective. I talked about how Yehuda Hanassi is also resurrected from the dead. And we have many stories in Pharisaical Judaism about tzaddikim, righteous saints, who have been resurrected from the dead and come back from time to time to visit their disciples. Yehuda Hanassi is a perfect example when we're talking about Jesus of Nazareth, because the parallels are very similar. Yehuda Hanassi used to come back once a week, every week, for Sabbath, to celebrate Sabbath with his family, and he used to do Kiddush with them. And this is very comparable to something that Jesus did with his disciples. Just before his death, just before his execution, he told his disciples, before he was arrested for execution, he told his disciples to do something called Havdalah in memory of him, which is a blessing at the end of a Yom Tov or at the end of a Sabbath. At the end of a Sabbath, you would do this blessing with wine and with candles and with besamim, some kind of fragrance, some incense or cloves or something which smells sweet and nice. At the end of a Yom Tov, you will only use the wine. And you can also combine it with something called Melav Malka, or just a tish. And a tish is a celebration where the leader of a school, of a yeshiva, the leader of a Jewish school of Talmidim or Havruta, a company of Jewish, a Jewish sort of Bible study company, or a Torah study company, a company of, and I don't mean a business, I mean a group of people who study, a study circle. It's called a Havruta, which also in modern Hebrew means just a general company, a business company, but that's not what it originally meant. And so he told his Havruta to do this activity in memory of him. And sometimes the head of a Havruta, a Rebbe or head of a yeshiva, will get together with them to celebrate something in which we call in Yiddish tish, which means a table, or hitveadut in Hebrew, which is basically it's a Davidic custom. It's something which comes down from the family of David. And the people who do this really are only continuing a tradition which comes down from David, or something which from the house of David, which is also called Melav Malka, accompanying the queen or accompanying the king. If you use Syriac or Aramaic, Malka means the king, but in Hebrew it means the queen. And this is also done at the end of a Sabbath, when you accompany the Sabbath out and say goodbye to the Sabbath or goodbye to a Yom Tov. So this is what Jesus did with his disciples. He told them to do it in memory of him. Because it was the end of the Yom Tov, there was no besamim. That means there's no spices and there's no candles mentioned, but there's only the blessing of the wine, kos shel bracha, the blessing of the wine, which is the most important thing. And so that's what he did with his disciples. And he also distributes shirayim, little tiny pieces of leftover pieces of bread or matzahs or fish, which would be distributed. And he said, "This is my body. Do this in memory of me." And that distribution is of the Sabbath meal is considered to be an act of passing around the essence of Yesod in Kabbalah, in Jewish theology. And Yesod is the basis of all the soul, the soul of Adam Kadmon, the original man, the image of God in which mankind was created. So this is the firstborn son. So he's passing out the essence of the firstborn son in this activity, which is why when he says, "Do this in memory of me," this is Judaism, this is Kabbalah, it's not Christianity. Christianity inherits this, and they built a lot of ceremony in the Catholic churches and the Orthodox churches. Those ancient churches have built a huge amount of ceremony around just one Jewish mitzvah,
Right.
Just
Right.
one Jewish
I'm
mitzvah.
with
It takes us, what, 5 minutes to do Havdalah?
It takes us 4 hours.
Yeah.
So yeah,
But it's nice, we've got a whole religion built around one mitzvah
sure.
because he said,
I'm
do
with
this.
you.
Yeah.
I
He
understand.
said, do this in memory of me. And it's quite funny because he says, beware the yeast of the Pharisees. And the Pharisees are famous for taking a small mitzvah and making it into a huge, gigantic thing.
Wow.
And it's exactly what the disciples did with regards to his command concerning Havdalah. He said, do this in memory of me. Avoid the yeast of the Pharisees. And they turn it into a 4-hour thing instead of a 5-minute thing. So unfortunately, they didn't avoid the yeast of the Pharisees. But and I can say that I'm laughing about it because people often say, "Oh, we don't want to hear your Pharisaical Judaic interpretation of things because that's the yeast of the Pharisees. We want to keep away from that, and we're not interested in the traditions of men." They'll say, and then they go and promote their own traditions of men, which I was challenging quite a lot last week with the narrative, which I was suggesting that, for example, the idea that the person who gave the witness to John in the Gospel of John. Because the Gospel of John is written by this person called John, and it says at the end of the Gospel of John that he interviewed this person, that this person who was the beloved disciple had given all this witness, and John says, and we know that his testimony is true. It doesn't say, and you all know that my testimony is true. He says, we know, we, the disciples in my group, John, know that his testimony, the disciple Jesus loved, is true. This means, obviously, rationally, that the Gospel of John, written by John, is not the Gospel written by the disciple Jesus loved, but based on the statements of the disciple Jesus loved. But there is this tradition of men, which has grown up in the Catholic Church and the Christian churches which have come out of that this is John, the disciple that Jesus loved is John. But we showed in the Gospel of John, chapter 11, that the disciple Jesus loved is specifically identified in the beginning of that chapter as Lazarus. So John is interviewing Lazarus and he's taking the details down. And this is a challenge to the traditions of men. So I'm not against, challenging the traditions of men. I'm not against, stopping Christians from copying the yeast of the Pharisees. I do acknowledge that we do have our own yeast, but there's also a good yeast which you do need, and that is to grow. If you come to God, if you come to Hashem as one believer, then Hashem does expect you, according to the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth, he does expect you to come back with at least one other convert before you die, because otherwise you're a wicked servant. This is the parable of the talents. You need to increase, you need to grow, and this is a good yeast. And this kind of yeast is associated with this time of the year, the time of the year of counting the Omer, after the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is to remind us to remove the yeast of pride, the yeast of arrogance, and other sins which are associated with that, puffing us up. To remove that yeast from our lives permanently, all year round, we have this 1 week which reminds us to keep that yeast, keep away from that yeast. Also, we should be careful to avoid the yeast of the Pharisees. And I'm a Pharisee. I'm happy to be a Pharisee. As Paul says, I'm a Pharisee and proud. But we have to avoid, for Christians have to, or Messianic Noahites, Messianic people, Hebrew Christians have to avoid the yeast of the Pharisees, which is making something too big out of something which is very simple. Don't make too much. Don't make a mountain out of the molehill. That's what we're famous for. And we're famous for it. And that's what he says to you. He says, do as we say in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 23. He says, do as we say, do the scribes and the Pharisees say, but don't do what we do, because we make massive mountains out of molehills. And he doesn't want you to do that. He doesn't want you to copy this yeast. But what he does want you to do is to go out there and make converts and come back, not just as yourself to God, when you come back to him on Judgment Day and say, here I am, Lord, I'm standing before you as a believer. He's going to say, and what did you do with your faith? Did you invest it? Did you bring back more? And you say, no, I didn't make a single convert my whole life. Well, then you're a wicked servant. This is something which Jesus puts a demand on his followers. You must do that. So there's a good yeast and there's bad yeast. You want to avoid the bad yeast, but now is the time to focus on that good yeast in the time of counting the Omer. So you have the Feast of Unleavened Bread comes to an end, and the day after the Feast of the week of Unleavened Bread, the 7 days of Unleavened Bread, is the end of the first week of counting the Omer, and it's a great time to start bringing to the temple. It was originally a good time to bring to the temple your first fruit offerings, which would include, and only for first fruit offerings, no other time of the year, only first fruit offerings was a time to include offerings made with yeast. You had to bring your yeasty cakes, yeasty breads to the temple as an offering. That's the challahs. You had to bring them to temple offering at this time in counting the Omer. A lot of people will mislead you and tell you that bringing a yeast offering to the temple is not a Judaic thing to do. It was never done by the Jews. It's a pagan thing that pagans used to bring their yeasty cakes as offerings, but Jews never did that. Well, they obviously never read the Bible, because you are actually specified to do that, to bring your yeast offerings to the temple during the first fruits, during the Feast of First Fruits, counting the Omer, which is where we are right now. So it's a good time to start doing that. Now, the end of the second week, which we just had, the end of the second week of counting the Omer, Jesus appears to his disciples again after the resurrection. He appears first time after the resurrection, the end of the first week, as a kind of a first fruit himself. And he has risen, which is like a symbol of, the rising, which is the yeast of the rising. And I mentioned that the word Easter itself, the English word Easter, comes from a Viking word, Easter, which means rising, which means yeast itself. And so this Easter season was a season of yeast, which is obviously taken from a Judaic meaning, because 1,000 years ago, Christians were much more serious about the Bible than sadly the vast majority of Christians, or at least people who call themselves Christians today. They're not so concerned about what the Bible says and what the laws are. They're more concerned about just a catchy phrase like, if you don't, I hope I won't offend people when I say this, just to make a confession that Jesus is your Lord and Savior, and that's it, you're saved, and you don't have to worry about anything else for the rest of your life. It's hyper grace story, which is completely incompatible with the Bible. It's another tradition of men. It's not mentioned anywhere in the Bible, this hyper grace idea. It doesn't come in the Bible. Once saved, always saved is not a sentence which appears in the Bible. But these are traditions of men which have been caught on and become very popular. But we have to, avoid all of that yeast which comes, that bad yeast, and we have to bring good yeast for this time. And so they knew that this was a time to make converts, that this was the holy yeast time, the holy first fruits offerings, and that's why it was called Easter. Counting the Omer is called Easter season. Notice I'm saying Easter because I want to try and remind people that is the origin of the word. Okay, so the end of the second week, he appears again to his disciples, and he appears this time in Galilee to Thomas. He appears to all 12. Paul tells us that he appears to all 12 of his disciples, and this is the second appearance of him, and this is the first time that Thomas sees him. Thomas is obviously one of the 12. I shouldn't have said disciples, I should have said 12 apostles, because there were 12 initial apostles, and they were called the 12, and later the apostles grew to a number of 120. We know that in the early book of Acts, where it says the number of the apostles was 120. And Paul also makes a reference to this in 1 Corinthians, where he talks about the number of times which Jesus appears after the resurrection. So the first resurrection, which we dealt with last week, was to the women, which is, and Paul doesn't seem to count the women when he talks about the brothers who Jesus appears to. First, he appears to Kepha. He doesn't mention any of the women. Then he appears to the 12. Again, he doesn't mention any women. Then he appeared to 500 brothers at the same time. And he says brothers, he doesn't mention women. So he's not counting women. He's only counting men for some reason. I guess that might be to do with halakhic reasons concerning witness, because the number of men which are counted as witness is different from the number of women which is counted as witness. So he's being consistent and talking only about men, and he's not counting the women. But that doesn't mean that he's discounting women's testimony. He's saying, in addition to all of these women who also saw him, he had these halakhic male witnesses as well. So that's an important thing. So I guess that's why he's doing it. So he appears to these 6 women, or actually he doesn't appear to all 6, but he lets it be known that he has risen to 6 women and to Peter, Cephas, Simon, on the first day. And I try to show that I believe that the passages in Luke and John refer to the same thing. I explained that. And then this time he appears again after Peter goes and tells them, but Thomas won't believe because he wasn't with Peter and the women when he appeared to them. And so he says, no, I'm not interested in this. I'll believe it when I see it. So then they all go, the end of the second week of Omer, they all go to Galilee, and he appears to the 12. And we mentioned that the 12, of course, one of them was Judas. So how can he be here to the 12? Because there was also Matthias who had replaced Judas, and he was counted as the new 12. So he must have been with them when he appeared in Galilee the second week. And also he appeared to women, but the women are not counted when he says he appeared to the 12 the second week. Okay. And then the next thing, this is interesting. It's a week later. So nobody saw him, and there's no more reports given in the Bible. Paul doesn't mention it. No other passage in the Bible mentions it for the whole first week. He appeared on that end of the first week of counting the Omer, and that's it. Not again until 8 days later at the end of the second week of counting the Omer in Galilee. It says 8 days later, and there he is again. And I thought, this is interesting. This is exactly like Yehuda Hanassi appearing once a week with his family to celebrate Shabbat. Jesus is doing the same thing to appear at the end of the weeks to celebrate Havdalah, the one thing which he gave his disciples to do in memory of him, which is called a zava'ah, an ethical will in Judaism. When a Rebbe, the leader of a yeshiva, a teacher, says to his disciples, his Talmidim, he says to them, do this one thing in memory of me and I will remember you. And if Hashem, God gives me permission to stand up and defend you and to intercede for you on the day of judgment, then I will recognize you by the fact that you carried out this mitzvah in memory of me. So it's so important for Christians to do this mitzvah in memory of him as his zava'ah, to be recognized by him as his disciples on the day of resurrection. If you're doing something else, it's not going to be recognized as his disciple. This is the mark of his disciples. So you've got to be doing that and keeping that. And Baruch Hashem, many Christians, they do. It doesn't matter which denomination they are, they generally do. Sadly, some denominations only do it once a month, others do it once a year, which is not enough, folks, because you've got to be doing this at the end of every Sabbath. Havdalah is at the end of every Sabbath and Yom Tov. That's when it is, and that's when you've got to do it. And it doesn't matter that you're doing it on Sunday morning. That's completely fine, because Havdalah, in my family, we do it on a Sunday morning, because often we are celebrating Sabbath for a long time. I live in the northern hemisphere, very far north, and it doesn't get dark until 11 o'clock at night on a Saturday, and we're all asleep. So we wake up in the morning, and the first thing we do in the morning on a Sunday is Havdalah, and that's the origin of Sunday worship. So totally acceptable to do Sunday morning, as long as you don't eat anything from the time that you wake up until you do Havdalah, and then you can have breakfast.
Well, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And Christians used to do that. They used to do that. It was a normal thing. Even go back 100 years, I don't think you'd find a single Christian denomination in the world where they would think about having breakfast before having the Eucharist. They would all go to church. Protestants, Catholics, Orthodox, they would all go and they would have the Eucharist first, and then they would have breakfast. And that's where this big tradition of having lunch after it comes from that, because that was basically your brunch.
Wow, very interesting.
So, but nowadays it's all messed up, because Gog Magog has marched across the face of the earth, and everything is getting messed up, and people are forgetting left, right, and center, and the apostasy is massive. You know, the man of lawlessness has been revealed. The great apostasy has taken place. Everything has happened now, but it's all going to work out very well in the end. So don't worry too much. But this is the important thing, that at the end of the second week of counting the Omer, Jesus appears again. He says to Thomas, put your fingers in my hands and your hand in my side. It's me, I'm real. And they're still shocked. And he says, does anybody have any fish and honeycomb? And they eat breakfast. So he comes back again to do the Havdalah with them at the beginning of the first day of the week, at the end of the second week of counting Omer. And the end of the first week of counting the Omer is the first day of the week, is the Sunday in Judaism. The first day of counting the Omer is always the 16th of Nisan.
Right.
And in the old Hasmonean calendar, which was always affixed to the weeks, that 16th of Nisan was always a Monday. The 15th of Nisan was always a Sunday. And of course, the end of the first week of counting Omer, the 22nd of Nisan, was always a Sunday. But then things like that changed gradually by the 3rd, 4th century, things had changed, and we have a different system of doing things now. But in the Hasmonean days, it was always fixed with the weeks.
Yeah.
I could get into it another time to explain how wonderful the original Jewish calendar is, and how you don't need to use leap days, but you would just use God's system of how he gives you an extra leap week, and following the Sabbaths and the Jubilees, and how it fixes itself perfectly and aligns with the calendar as described in Talmud. But we haven't got time to go into all that now. So just
maybe another episode.
Another episode, maybe, Be'ezrat Hashem. Okay, so then he appears and he says, I'm not a ghost. If a ghost doesn't have these things, and he says, does anybody have anything to eat? And so they believe, and they're very, very happy with him. Now, it says that in Paul, it says there are, let me just try and find this because I've got my notes to go through so that I don't get lost like I did last time. So please forgive me while I just look through my notes for a second. Catch up where I am. Yeah, I know where I've got to go now. So it's 1 Corinthians 15, verse 5, and he gives the list. There's something else which I didn't mention last time. I think it's worthwhile mentioning here. It's something which is overlooked a lot. That in Matthew chapter 27, verse 51, it says that when Jesus was crucified, the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. I don't know if I mentioned the earthquake, which is described in the Talmud concerning that year.
You did.
I did. And we couldn't close the curtain again for 40 years after that until the destruction. So that's actually based in history. He says that this happened. He says the earth quaked and the rocks split, the tombs broke open, and the bodies of many saints who had fallen asleep were raised, and having come out of the tombs, and then he says, this was after his resurrection, they entered in the holy city and appeared to many people. So the resurrection of Jesus is not just Jesus who's mentioned here, but there was a resurrection of a lot of saints also after the resurrection. And they came out of the tombs and they appeared to many people. I think it's important to pay attention to that in case you ever doubt Jewish stories about the resurrection of our saints, because those saints would have been Jewish saints. And so, it's actually in the Bible. It's in your Christian Bible that we had the resurrection of Jewish saints. So, don't be surprised.
Yeah.
But this is, as I said, one of the difficult reasons why Christians are having difficulty. They have difficulty converting the Jews. It's like, but we've got this wonderful, fantastic news. A man came back from the dead. And the Jews are like, yes. And they're like, well, why isn't this impressive to you? Well, we have plenty of saints who come back from the dead. But the good news, which, you want to be converting the Jews who don't know about this, go and convert them because they're not... Yeah. They're not following Judaism properly. They don't understand Judaism. They need some help. They've become apostate from the religion. They are secular or something like that. And I often talk with my rabbi, say it would be better if these people were Noahites than to carry on as lapsed Jews. And absolutely, they are going to get punishment as lapsed Jews, but they will get reward if they live as Noahites. So, make them into believing Noahites and observant Noahites at the very least, please Hashem. But if you don't do this, then they are in serious trouble. And that's what Jesus says. He comes for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And those are the lost sheep. And if we can't get them, it's called kiruv. What we're doing is called kiruv. You might call it missionary work. Okay? Converting people to missionary work. It's the wrong phrase to use. And the counter missionaries get very upset about this. If you call it kiruv, this is a much better phrase to use. Kiruv is basically saving the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And Jesus says that you can save the lost sheep of the house of Israel by making Noahites out of all nations. This actually is based in the Torah as well. It's based in the Song of Moses, in the Devarim, in Deuteronomy. And there's plenty of examples about this. There's also in Genesis, in the book of Genesis, it talks about how Esau, who was the original lost Jew, circumcised on the 8th day, went to the same yeshiva with his brother, grew up, but then rejected his birthright, annoyed his parents by marrying these wicked women, was brought back into the folds of the family by a daughter of Ishmael, by the sister of Nabiot. That's interesting. Nabiot is a name which means the prophets. Nabiot means prophets or prophethood. And she's the sister of prophethood or the sister of the prophets. And she stands as a daughter of Ishmael. Ishmael is a symbol in Judaism of the 7 laws of Noah, of Noahide Judaism. People like to say, you'll often find, you can always identify whether somebody is a Christian missionary pretending to be a Jew or a real Jew on how they will talk about Ishmael. If they love Ishmael, they're probably Jewish. If they hate Ishmael and say, Ishmael's a wicked person, they're definitely a Christian missionary pretending to be Jew. And that's one of the ways, that's a shibboleth you can use to identify them. We love Ishmael. We have Rabbi Ishmael. We have so many saints of Ishmael. Ishmael was a holy man. Christians don't like the fact that we love Ishmael. I don't know why, but we do love Ishmael, and we say that Ishmael symbolizes Ishmael symbolizes the Noahites from amongst the nations of the world who are righteous non-Jews, who are not circumcised on the 8th day. Yes, Ishmael was circumcised as an adult, but not on the 8th day, so he's not counted as the Jew. He's counted as maybe a circumcised non-Jew, and he could be circumcised or not circumcised. It's not important for him. The important thing is that he keeps the 7 laws of Noah, and that's why we love Ishmael. So through Ishmael's family, the lost sheep, that is Edom, becomes retrieved. He comes back, and it's called Kiruv. So the project that we're all working on together is not missionary work, converting people one way or the other. We're all working together in a Kiruv project to bring back the lost sheep of the house of Israel and to bring them back into the family, because they're going into a bad place if we don't help them. Okay. So Noahides, that's what we want to make.
Let me jump in there.
Yeah.
There's always been this, or last few years, big deal on what would Jesus do?
Yeah.
Right? Well, you just said what Jesus would do. And it even says it in the word. It says he came after the long lost sheep of Israel. And you just explained what that was.
Yeah.
Whereas Christians have a tendency to believe, Jesus came to preach to the Jews, but we have come to preach to the world and bring them in. And if the Jews get saved along with us, but that's not at all what Jesus or Yeshua said.
That's right. He says, I've come not except for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But then he confuses everybody at the resurrection by saying, now go and make converts out of all nations. And it confuses it, baptize in the name of the Father and the Son. But it's like, what's going on here? Did he come for the Jews or did he come for all nations? And I'm trying to explain that the way of Kiruv, the correct way of Kiruv to retrieve the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And Jesus knew this, and this is what he taught his disciples. And Orthodox Jews, Pharisees, we know this because it's in the Torah, is the example of the lost Jew Esau, who was brought back into the good graces of his family by marrying the daughter of Ishmael. And we know that Edom symbolizes the lost Jew and Ishmael symbolizes the Noahide. So the way in which you retrieve, you do the kiruv to retrieve the lost sheep of the house of Israel can only be done by making converts out of all the nations into Noahides. You have to convert the nations into Noahides first, and that will make Edom jealous, and he'll come back. And that's what Hashem says, and even in the song of, he reiterates this message again and again and again and again, all the way through the Bible, all the way through the Tanakh. He reiterates this. When Moses is singing the song of Moses, it says, there's a verse in there which says, they have angered me by their godlessness, so I will make them jealous by a people who are not a people, by a nation which is not a nation. Again, this is the clue. This is the key. This is literally the hermeneutical key that you need to unlock the meaning of the Bible. It's reiterating again the exact same thing which was said in the story of Edom, that these lost sheep can only be brought back by Noahides. There's no way to bring them back otherwise. They won't get jealous unless they see Noahides whose righteousness, that is tzadikut, which means basically observance of Judaism, or yesod, the basis, the foundation of Judaism, whose foundation of Judaism surpasses that of the Pharisees. It means if the non-Jews, and I give a perfect example, it's not my example, it's from the gospel, the Syrophoenician woman who comes and understands Havdalah and the Shiraim of Melech Malka better than his disciples. When his disciples are saying, send her away. And he says, well, I've come not except for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. It's not right to take what belongs to them and the children and give it to the dogs. That's what my disciples want me to tell you. What can I do? He knows full well, of course, as a tzaddik, what she's going to say. And she replies, yes, Lord. But even the dogs have the right to eat the scraps that fall from the children's tables. He says, this is great faith. And I think maybe he says this, or he says this to a Roman soldier later, I haven't seen such faith in Israel. And he makes this point with two people, with the Syrophoenician woman and with the Roman centurion. These people know about their righteousness, their tzadikut, their knowledge of Judaism, the deeper secrets of Judaism surpasses that of people who should be Pharisees. Yeah.
Well, it's through the years as I have been learning all this and studying and witnessing so many things, because I've been in the ministry for several years, is that you have a lot of evangelists that say that Jesus, Yeshua, said, "Go ye into all the world and get people saved." He never said that.
No,
He
he
said, "Go ye into all the world and make
disciples.
Talmudim."
Talmudim. That's right.
You don't just walked up to somebody and say, "You need to get saved."
Yeah.
You need to acclimate them into the understanding of what it means to live the lifestyle that God has set out for us.
That's right.
And I've tried to clarify that so much through the years is you have to make sure somebody understands what they're doing. And I think a lot of times what you're like, when I hear what you're saying about what the Pharisees did, they really didn't have that heart, love, faith for God, and that's why they did what they did. They were more
on Beit Shammai versus Beit Hillel. I'll just have to say, Beit Shammai did not have a heart.
But Beit it's Hillel more of the letter of the law than the heart of it.
Yeah.
And to me, that's when Yeshua says these two people are better than them. Because they did have that heart.
Yeah. That's right. But also we need to understand, of course, who the Pharisees were. If you say the Pharisees, it's like saying the government in those days. And the government at that time, you could say the government. And at the time when you're talking about the government, it might be a Republican government. But another time, it's a Democrat government.
I see.
And it's not the same. So it's the same as in Judaism. The Pharisees is like the government. They sit in the seat of Moses. So do and observe everything they tell you to do, but don't do as they do. But we also have two parties. They have two parties in the United Kingdom with the right wing and the left wing, and the same in the United States. And we also had the same in Judaism too. If you like, the left wing was Beit Hillel, which is all about love and inclusion and making allowances and accepting people. It was very progressive, if you like. This channel is about the most progressive, up to date points of view, and it's very much in keeping with the spirit of Beit Hillel, the school of Hillel. And the other side would be Beit Shammai, which was more like the conservatives, and they were the ones, the right wing, were the ones who were nationalist, and they were interested about their income, their wealth. They were all, it was very much the same. It's like things change, but nothing changes, nothing really changes. And they were the ones who sentenced Jesus to death. But Jesus was promoting really the way of Beit Hillel the whole time. And so we do have that. And he's criticizing the Pharisees and say, let your righteousness surpass that. He's talking about Yesod. He's talking about the basis. What we could call in Yiddish, we call it Yiddishkeit. So let your Yiddishkeit surpass that of the Pharisees, which means let your Jewish spirit, if you like, be more Jewish than the Jews. And if you talk about Yiddishkeit, it's a wonderful thing. It's merciful kindness, generosity, friendliness, loving support. It's all of these things, and you have to let that grow to be even more. And it's also always, though, it's not just randomly ethical, because people have ethics from every country in the world. You don't need to pick on the Jews to talk about ethics. Buddhists have got ethics. Shintos in Japan have got ethics. Aboriginal people from all around the world in their native religions have got ethics. But what he's talking about is its Kabbalic basis, and that's what the Yesod is. The Yesod is a Kabbalic basis. And Kabbalah is a scary word for a lot of people, because of anti-Semitic propaganda. It simply means Jewish theology. If you don't know Kabbalah, you do not know the theology of the Bible. That's all it is. And people say, no, it means mysticism. No, it doesn't. It's literally the received theology. Kabbalah means received, and it's the received theology that we have. It's Jewish theology. You cannot understand the Bible without Jewish theology. And inventing Gentile theology to go and try and explain the Bible is like the anti-essence of Judaism. The heart of Judaism is theology. And to create an anti-theology is like to attack the very heart of Judaism, which is the Jewish soul. That is the Jewish soul. The Jewish soul, Yesod, is the Son of God. And the Jews were blessed enough to carry the Son of God. And Jesus is a symbol of the Son of God for all the nations, so that the nations can become Noahites and thereby convert the lost sheep of the house of Israel and bring those lost sheep back to where they're supposed to be, which is basically a strong understanding of Yiddishkeit.
Wow.
Okay.
Very well said, brother. Very well said. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. And I'm very glad that you're on the same page with this and we can talk about this.
I'm learning. I'm learning, brother. And I've been doing this for 24 years. I've been studying this for 24 years and I'm learning big time. I appreciate you.
So we got that Jewish saints, and then he says it says that after his suffering, Jesus presented himself to his disciples with many convincing proofs, and that he was alive, and he appeared to them over a span of 40, and I said that's probably 42 days, and spoke about the kingdom of God. And I tried to say that these 42 days are the last 6 weeks of the Omer. These 42 days are the last 6 weeks of the Omer. He appeared at the end of the first week of the Omer, and then he again appeared at the end of the second week of the Omer. And he kept on appearing at the end of the Omer right up until, I say, Pentecost, which I would say is the final appearance. But he has these 5 appearances, which are the first 5 weeks of his resurrection, which is before the 6th week, which is Pentecost itself. So the 6th week is Pentecost itself. And these 5 weeks, which I was trying to talk about, are from the end of the first week until the end of the 5th week. Which
I see what you're saying. Because my brain and what I've always understood is 7 weeks.
It is 7 weeks.
49.
But you have to remember that the first of those 7 weeks was the Feast of Unleavened Bread itself.
I get it now.
So he appears 5 weeks until the Ascension. That is the 5th appearance, what they call the Ascension. Although it's actually it's a second ascension as far as we know, because he already ascended on the first day. He says to his disciples, "Don't touch me, I haven't yet ascended to the Father." And then he says later in the second appearance, he says, "Go and stick your fingers inside of me." So there must be he ascended, and then he came back down on the same day, and he spoke to disciples in the evening. 1 week later, he's obviously ascended and come back down, maybe again. And he's saying to Thomas, "You can stick your fingers inside of my holes." And then what we see is the ascension is not like, I think that we see it the wrong way. It's like, this is the final ascension and he's gone now and he's never coming back again. And I don't think that's the way we should see it. He's already been ascending. And I don't think it's right that you should say that on Pentecost, when he gives his spirit to disciples, this is the first time, this is a brand new thing. It's never happened before, because on the very first day, he breathes on his disciples and says, "Receive the Holy Spirit." So there is nothing unique about the ascension, because it's just another ascension, and he already ascended on the first day. And there's also nothing unique about the Pentecost, because that's breathing the Holy Spirit on them, and that also already happened the first day. So it's just another occurrence. So the church has sort of split off this final occurrence of the sixth week. And that is the 7th week of the Omer, but it's the 6th week of Jesus' appearances. And they've made it into something different. So that's why I was focusing on the 5 weeks of his appearances over those days of counting the Omer. But each of those 5 appearances at the end of the week, or if it's not specified as the end of the week, there is only one occurrence a week, right up until the Pentecost, only once a week. And that's the key point. It's very Jewish. And that's why I think it's only associated with the Havdalah. And I think that is when you're going to see Jesus. Now, what is happening at first, for the first 5 weeks of his appearances, which are the first over the 6 weeks of the Omer, but it's the first 5 weeks of his appearances, is he's appearing in one body. He's appearing in one body. And then at the 7th week, that is Pentecost, the 7th week of Pentecost, or the 6th week of his occurrences, he is now a tongue of flame. His spirit is like a ghost on every one of the disciples, every one of the 120 disciples. So it's like they have now all received him, and they are now anointed, I would say, as Paul was anointed, to go and preach him among the nations. And Paul says how he was anointed to do that. Paul says in Corinthians, he says that first of all, he appeared to Kepha, then to the 12. After that, he was seen by 500 brothers at the same time, and most of whom he said the greater number of remaining present until this day, but some of whom have fallen asleep. Then he was seen by James, which I say is at the fishing, when he was fishing, James Lazarus. And then by all the apostles, which means 120, and that would be the Ascension week, the 5th time, the Ascension. Then it says that those apostles went into the upper room and they waited for several days until they received the Holy Spirit. And it says their number was 120. So that's 120 apostles. And then he says, and then finally he appeared to me as if one born out of turn or something like this. And he says a few other things which I think are really important we have to pay attention to. He says also in Galatians, God who set, this is Galatians chapter 1, verse 15 to 16. God who set me apart from my mother's womb and called me by his grace was pleased to reveal his son in me so that I might preach among the Gentiles. So there's a connection. It's not just a random, he's saying there's a connection between preaching among the Gentiles requires you to have the son revealed in you. You can't preach among the Gentiles unless you have the son revealed in you. So receiving the spirit of Yesod, of the basis of righteousness, the spirit of Jesus into yourself is a necessary prerequisite to being able to preach among the Gentiles. Now in Judaism, the thing we preach among the Gentiles is Noahide Judaism. So what Paul seems to be saying here, and this is also the way that Jacob Emden takes it, and also Rashi and the Tosafists and the tradition which I follow right down to Harvey Falk, who's also inspired you. You can call yourself a disciple of Harvey Falk's as well, and say in the same yeshiva as me, which is probably why we get along. We're in the same yeshiva, and the way we understand it actually from Jacob Emden here is that the spirit which is being filled with you to preach among the nations, this righteousness, this tzadikut that you're receiving to preach among the nations, must be therefore Noahide Judaism. It's Noahide Judaism. So Jesus therefore represents Noahide Judaism, which is very good because that is the spirit of the Messiah, which does come. Remember, Cyrus the Great is referred to as a Messiah. Why? Because he has the spirit of Noahide Judaism. He's not a Jew, he's a Noahide, but he's called the Messiah because he's filled with the Noahide spirit. So you get the transformation, and this is also in Isaiah as well, of the messianic soul, who is in Isaiah definitely the Messiah ben Joseph, the persecuted Messiah, which Jesus definitely represents. He represents this persecuted Messiah for the nations. And then the transformation of this persecuted Messiah into a multitude of Messiahs, which is also the servants of God, which is a very interesting way of looking at it. And then he says this in Galatians, the same letter, after saying that the Son was revealed in him, he makes it further. He says in Galatians chapter 6, verse 17, I bear on my body the marks of Jesus, which is very interesting. So it means that I think that means that he's inherited some kind of appearance of Jesus in his own body, which is a necessary thing. Now, there are two ways of looking at this. I will only look at the Jewish way. So why do I have a beard? Why do I have a beard? Why do I have payat? Why do I dress in a certain way? Because I'm trying to bear in my body the marks of Yesod, the marks of Adam Kadmon. Yeah. And the reason why a Jew should have a beard and shouldn't shave it, and the reason why we have these appearances is because we try to emulate the image of Adam Kadmon, the messianic soul, which we carry. So I think that that's what Paul is talking about where he says this. He's basically saying, I'm carrying that character. I don't shave. I have payat and various things like that. So I think that's what he might be saying. So anyway, the point is that there is this spirit of Noahide Judaism, which is going to fill people like it filled Cyrus the Great and make them into like mini Christs, if you like, mini messiahs. Yes, that's what they're called, the Christians. Yes, they're supposed to be like Meshichim, the little messiahs. So they're supposed to be out there doing the work of promoting Noahide Judaism. If they do their job, then Baruch Hashem, the Mashiach is with us. But if they don't do their job, then where is Mashiach? And our sages tell us he's sitting, this is what they tell us, he's sitting in the gates of Rome, binding the wounds one by one. Because the people who are supposed to do the mission are not doing their mission. And so he's sitting, waiting, healing one person at a time. Hopefully it'll get to enough point one day that they will flood across the planet and return to doing the duty which they are supposed to do and that will be the defeat of Gog Magog. The spread of the Noahide Judaism across the planet will defeat the armies of Gog Magog, and we'll enter into a brand new age. But Be'ezrat Hashem, if that comes, please God.
Oh.
So that's what I think is going on there.
Wow.
So I think I explained all of that. We've got 45
Wow.
minutes. We're free to talk a little bit about various topics and go into more detail.
We have about 15 minutes.
15 minutes,
One of the things in what you were saying that brought to my mind is that we have heard a whole lot of stories in the past few years of Christians that go on tour to Israel, and they specifically want to go to the Jews to convert them, to get them saved. And the stories we hear is they come back and say, we tried to witness to them, but they know our Bible better than we do.
Yeah.
And a lot of them actually converted to Judaism instead of the other way around. And we have heard countless stories of this. I would say you're probably familiar with that too.
I am. I should say that there is a movement in Israel and in the land of Israel right now, which is like a return to the way of Beit Shammai, which goes and converts people to full Judaism. And in Beit Hillel, which is the traditional Orthodox Judaism for the past 2,000 years, more than that, we don't believe in converting people to Judaism. We believe in converting people into Noahides.
Yeah, okay. It's what their wording, the Christians' wording, because it's the way they understood.
Well, they have been converted to Judaism, to Noahide Judaism, but hopefully they haven't been converted to full Jews, because if they have been, then that's really kind of messing things up a little bit. It's messing up the plan.
A bit.
It is actually. It's pretty bad. It comes when a convert came to Shammai and to Hillel, and he said to Shammai and Hillel, he said the same thing. He said, "Convert me to Judaism while I'm standing on one foot." And Shammai said, "Get lost," and beat him off with a ruler. And Hillel said, "Well, what you find detestable for yourself, do not do unto others. The rest is commentary. Go and study." And the convert became a member of the school of Hillel because of Hillel's approach. And what Hillel's saying here is that it's Noahide Judaism. It's very easy to learn to become a Noahide, just like that. That's Judaism. That is the job of converting people to become a Noahide, and it's very easy. It's just like that. But what Shammai was angry about is he's saying, thinking that you're going to learn all of Judaism and how to become a member of the Kehillah inside of standing one thing, get out of here. And that attitude is wrong, because it means you want to force people to follow all of the law and get circumcised and keep all of the law. That's not the way. Paul understood that you don't get circumcised and keep all of the law in order to adopt Judaism. You simply adopt Noahide Judaism. You don't get circumcised and you become a Noahide. And then you start to observe the Sabbath, not as a Jew, but as a non-Jew. Sabbath is an important symbol of repentance, as a repentant Noahide. And then gradually you can learn and apply more and more and more. And if you really want to, after many years, like Abraham, as a very, very old man, you can get circumcised and become a Jew. But it's not necessary for your salvation. Abraham lived most of his life uncircumcised. You don't think God was going to reject him if he died any time earlier and said, "No, I'm not going to have you, Abraham. You're not good enough for me." Of course he was good enough. His righteousness was already there. So that's the kind of righteousness we want for the non-Jews. We would like that righteousness. And I know it's confusing because a lot of Christians will read this and say, well, Jesus didn't come except for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And he said, go and convert all nations. So it means that Jesus must want to make all nations into Jews. And everybody's got to start wearing their hats and have their kippah and their tzitzit and everything and their tefillin. And the conclusion is that Paul must be evil. Paul must be wrong, because he seems to be contradicting the idea of converting everybody into a Jew. No, Paul absolutely 100% totally understood what Jesus meant when he said, obey the scribes and the Pharisees. And Paul, as a Pharisee, knew what was going on. He's saying, you got to be converted to Noahides in order to save those lost Jews over there. And those lost Jews have got to come back as Noahides, because they're not going to come back as Torah observant Jews anymore. They're too far away. So I do think it's very nice if Christians want to go to Israel and they want to convert every single member of the secular IDF, please do. Because those people are very, very far from Judaism, even if they say that Judaism is their way. They do not understand Judaism. They're following the ways of Beit Shammai, which is the house of nationalism, and which reduces Hashem, the God of all creation. It reduces him to a tribal deity, a false god of the nations. And when you've reduced Hashem to a tribal deity, you have basically swapped him for an imposter. And the only imposter who wants to pretend to be the God of all creation, but is a tribal deity, is Hasatan, is the evil inclination. Yetzer Hara. We want to get rid of. We don't want. But these people are worshiping the Yetzer Hara, which is basically an imitation of the nations. They've turned the God of all creation into a nationalistic entity, a national spirit. And there is no difference between one national spirit and another national spirit. They're all false gods, every single one of them.
I agree.
Whether it's American patriotism or British patriotism or French patriotism or Israeli patriotism, all this patriotism, it comes from pater, father, the father of the nation. They want him to worship the father of the nation. Well, Jewish patriotism is different because the father of the nation is Hashem. Yeah, it should be. But remember that the Jews swapped Hashem for an earthly king. And then, I don't know if people understand the Song of Solomon properly, but the Song of Solomon is about how the Jewish nation is disgruntled with Solomon as a king. And they're not happy to have Solomon. They want to have Hashem as the bridegroom, the king again. And they won't accept anybody else. The love for them is grown cold. But the love for their first love, for the bridegroom, Hashem, this is what we want. We want to have Hashem as our king again. We're fed up with earthly kings. We're sick and tired of Saul and David and Solomon. We're not interested in any more earthly kings.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
We got 5 minutes left.
5 minutes. I don't know if they get that, but that's...
Yeah, I can follow it. You have to stop and think of what you're saying. I think a lot of times, of course, this is an issue that I have dealt with forever, is that it's the concept of being saved. And so when Christians, their idea is that they confess publicly that Jesus is the Son of God and that he's saving them. So when I say inadvertently here that they go to Israel and they want to get the Jews saved, but what happens is more not that they convert to Judaism, but they end up denying Jesus as the Savior. What happens.
And I think that's because of movements like Tovia Singer's and the counter missionary sort of movement that he symbolizes or kind of represents. And you have to understand where that comes from. It comes from an extreme level of irritation and fed upness. Like, we're just sick and tired of these Christians trying to convert us. And you know what? They tried to kill us during the Holocaust, and nobody stood up for us, actually, in the end. It was the Soviets, the atheistic Soviets, who liberated most of the death camps, most of the Jewish death camps. And although the Western powers like to take credit for that, the Americans did liberate death camps as well, but most of them were liberated by the Soviets. And it was really just a side issue. It was secondary to the fact, because after that, nobody in the world wanted to look after us. We were boat people in the Mediterranean. The British wouldn't let us into Palestine. But the people who had grown up in the Holocaust were angry and violent, and they used that spirit and established the state of Israel. And then people hated us, and they supported the Arab states against us, and somehow we survived. And 1967 came along, and we still survived. And even after that, America hated us. Remember Munich at that time, when Munich happened, at that time, America hated us. And then after Munich, when they went around assassinating people, then suddenly the CIA gained some level of respect for Israel and the powers that be got respect for us. And suddenly we became super popular in the world and everybody loves Jews and Judaism in Israel and the IDF now. Although Israel and the IDF and Jews and Judaism are not the same thing.
I agree. I understand
that wears thin after a while. And now we're at a second level of persecution where if you're not one of the IDF nationalists and you walk around the streets like this, then you're going to get, your children are going to get beaten up. Your daughters are going to get in trouble in schools, and you're going to face the anti-Semitism as well, which is on the rise right now. So we have a lot of trouble. We have a lot of problems which have come out of this, but it's you've got to try to rediscover the Judaism as it was beforehand. So you understand where these missionaries are coming from. They're angry, and they want to punish. They want to punish you. Yeah. So I understand that, but it's not Judaism. I understand their anger. I understand their need to punish you. I understand the establishment of the state of Israel by violent people. I understand all of that, but it's not Judaism. And what I want is try and help people understand what Judaism really is, because there's a loving spirit behind it. And that is the same essence which gave birth to Christianity. And it also gave birth to Islam. But these two religions were influenced by the Persian Empire in the case of Islam, and it's more Persian than it is Semitic. And the Roman Empire in the case of Christianity, and it's more Roman than it is Semitic. But when we try to get back to the original true basis of it all.
It's amazing. The biggest war in about every different instance is that of propaganda.
Yeah,
it's people sharing stuff that they don't even know facts. Today, watching the news and everything, my biggest concern and pet peeve is people that speak of the future as fact.
Yeah,
and it's just propaganda. It's everywhere. We got to go, brother. I love you so much, and I really appreciate and look forward. Next Tuesday can't come quick enough. So thank you, brother, so much. And you got it. You got the outro and everything. It's yours.
I'll let you do the outro now. God bless you all. Don't forget you can send an email to redjudaism@gmail.com if you have any questions, and we look forward to seeing. Oh, that's petachamor@gmail.com as well if you have any questions, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. God bless you all. Take care. Shalom. Bye-bye.
If you missed today's show or want to watch it again or want to tell someone where they can watch this episode, go to lambnetwork.tv, where you will find this show and all other live Lamb Show archives in the on-demand section of the website. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to tell somebody about the Messianic Lamb Network.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hugi, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.
Welcome to Newscasting Ancient Times. I'm Sandy Craig, and on behalf of the LAMB Network, I'm here with Mark David Smith to bring you Brit Hadashah accounts as though they happened today.
Welcome, everybody. Hi, Sandy.
Hey.
I trust your week has been blessed and you've been a blessing to everyone you've come in contact with. Sandy?
Yes, Mark.
Joe the Hebrew is in the house.
I know. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Cameron, more commonly known as Joe the Hebrew, was at one time one of Lamb's chief correspondents, and due to circumstances beyond her control, she took a sabbatical. And now she's back. Joe, it's so good to see you in the house.
I know. It's good to be in the studio.
Yeah, that's right. You were Lamb's star field reporter for a few years. To understand you are back full force in the field. I only ask since we have you in the studio physically with us, that maybe you plan on shifting between both the studio and field work.
Well, studio work is fun. Getting to be on with you guys has been such a blessing, and I am so excited about this.
Good.
Oh, it is amazing. And yet I must confess, being in the field is extremely rewarding, especially when I now get to hang out with, of course, you two. It's great. It's awesome. And to hang out with his Talmudim out there is even awesome.
Yeah, hanging out with Yeshua HaMashiach, that you can't even match that.
Yeah.
Mark and I have had our encounters with the Talmudim as well. We even had Matthew and his wife Deborah on the show live last week, and his insight into the physical and spiritual workings that surround the lives of Yeshua and his followers are beyond anything Mark and I could have brought to the table.
Yep, that's true. All right.
So you've been spending time with them, Joe?
Yeah.
I've only begun to spend time on the road with them, but I find that since my decision to recognize Yeshua as Messiah, the way I read and interpret their walk and Yeshua's teaching has changed.
Yeah, Sandy and I have had exactly the same experience.
I mean, it's incredibly, just absolutely incredible. And I got back a couple weeks ago and asked for this assignment. I mean, I'm so excited to have this assignment with you guys. Yeah. And in fact, it is what brought me back to Lamb, informed me that they had lost a field reporter. I'm so sorry to hear that. And since they respect the work I'd done before, they wondered if I knew someone who would be interested in living and traveling with this group to report the encounters. Yeah. And I've watched your previous articles and wow, on Yeshua, and have to admit your reports caused me to want to go further into this. And I quite, I'm touched by several of the stories about Yeshua and the two of you brought to light. I mean, it's just amazing.
Well, it took Mark and I a long time to be convinced that he's truly the Messiah. It took a long time.
Yeah. Now that we've seen the light reveals all so vividly.
So what have you got for us, Joe?
Oh, wow. Well, only 3 days ago, I was with the Talmudim when they questioned Yeshua about a man who had been blind from birth. I did the best I could to keep records and notes. I got them right here. Everything you could write down about their conversation. This is what happened. The Talmudim asked Yeshua, the rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, to cause him to go blind, to be born blind? And Yeshua answered, his blindness is due to neither his sin nor that of his parents. It happened so that God's power might be seen at work in him. This is just so amazing what happened. As long as it is day, we must keep doing the work of the one who sent me. The night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Having said this, he spit in the ground.
Wow.
You know, some people thought that was pretty disgusting, but they spit in the ground, and he made some mud with it, with the saliva, and he put the mud on the man's eyes and said to him, "Go wash off in the pool of Shiloh."
Uh-huh.
So he went and he washed and came away seeing. His neighbors and those who were previously, you know, had seen him before begging on the streets there said, "Isn't this the man who used to sit and beg?" Some said, "Yes, he's the one," while others said, "No, it looks like him." However, he himself said, "I am the one." "How were your eyes opened?" they asked him. And he answered, "The man called Yeshua made mud and put it on my eyes and told me, go to Shiloh and wash." So I went, he says, and as soon as I had washed, I could see. And they said to him, "Where is he?" And he replied, "I don't know."
Well, this is classic Yeshua. I mean, from what Sandy and I have been following, he does his work and vanishes. We've heard several different stories, all with the same outcome.
Everyone Yeshua touched gets healed. And then he's on to the next thing or person or issue. It's like he has so much confidence in what he does that he doesn't even need to confirm that someone just got healed.
True.
So yeah, that's amazing.
Yep.
So how long have you been traveling with that group, Joe?
For quite a while. And, you know, the next thing that happened was very interesting is, well, not interesting, because usually this is what they do, is they took the man who had been blind to the Pharisees. Now, the day on which Yeshua had made the mud and opened the eyes of the man was on Shabbat. Yeah. So the Pharisees asked him again how he had become able to see. And he told them, "He put mud on my eyes, and then I washed, and now I can see."
Oh.
At this, some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, because he doesn't keep Shabbat." But others said, "How could a man who is a sinner do miracles like these?" And there was a split among them. I mean, literally a split. They were sitting there arguing. And so once more, they spoke to the blind man, "Since you're the one whose eyes he opened, what do you say about him?" The man was a little fearful, I believe, but yet he replied, "He is a prophet." The Judeans, however, were unwilling to believe that he had formerly been blind, but now could see, until they had summoned the man's parents. Now they're bringing the man's parents into the mix.
Yeah, really.
So they asked them, "Is this your son, who you say was born blind? And how is it that now he can see?" His parents answered, "We know this is our son, and that he was born blind, and now he can see," you know, and which I believe the parents were probably in shock and in amazement.
Of course.
But nor do we know who opened his eyes. They didn't know who opened his eyes. They weren't there.
That's right.
So ask him. He's old enough.
That's right.
You know, come on, he's an adult. Why are they asking the parents when this guy is an adult?
Yeah.
See, the parents were afraid, because they were afraid that the Judeans, if they would have said, "Well, he's the Messiah," or "He's the Son of God," or "He's this," or "He's that," that they would have gotten kicked out of the synagogue.
That's true. That's true. That's right. We got that one in one of the news bulletins that was sent a while back. And I really don't find it hard to believe. They're not going to acknowledge that Yeshua is the Messiah publicly. They will lose all credibility with the chief council, especially.
That's true.
Yeah, this is true. This is also why his parents said he's old enough to ask him, even though this was their son. You know, like I said before, they were scared. In their minds, the synagogue is sacred. They were not going to be accountable for what is not their issue.
That's understandable.
Yeah. So a second time, the Pharisees call on the man who had been blind, and they asked him again, swear to God that you will tell the truth. We know that this man is a sinner.
Wow.
First of all, how do they know this man's heart? How do they know Yeshua's heart? I don't understand that. That's kind of, I was sitting there humming and hawing about that, and I put that in my notes, by the way.
Oh, but
And so they asked him again, and he says, what did he do to you? And how did he open your eyes? And the guy said it. He says, he's looking at them going, my God, I told you already. I gave you the answer. You're not listening. Why do you want to hear it again? Maybe you too want to become his Talmudim. Oh, I think this made them mad because
oh,
yeah.
they rallied at him. And you may be as his Talmudim, they said, but we are Talmudim of Moshe. I mean, whoa, the yelling and the screaming we got there. Oy vey. And see, I've been hanging around the Talmudim a lot. So what a strange thing. The man answered that you don't know where he's from, considering that he opened my eyes. We know that God doesn't listen to sinners. But if anyone fears God and does his will, and God does listen to him, in all history, no one has ever heard of someone's opening the eyes of a man born blind, which I believe he created the eyes. It was really amazing. If this man were not from God, he couldn't have done this thing.
That's right.
That's right. Then they sit there and yelled at him and called him a mamzer.
wow.
And they retorted, are you lecturing us? And they threw him out.
Yeah, I don't know.
They literally picked him up and threw him out of the synagogue. An hour later, Yeshua, he heard that what had happened to this guy, and he found him and said, do you trust in the Son of Man? And the blind man said, sir, tell me, who is he so that I can trust in him? And Yeshua said to him, you have seen him. In fact, he's the one speaking with you now.
There you go. Yeah.
And the guy goes and says, Lord, I trust. And he knelt down in front of him. This is what really got me to believe more and more that Yeshua is the Messiah. And Yeshua said, it is to judge that I came into this world so that those who do not see might see, and those who do see might become blind. Some of the Pharisees nearby heard this and said to him, so we're blind too? Are we? Oh, wow. You should have seen that. That gave a stink.
I would imagine.
And then Yeshua answered them, if you were blind, you would not be guilty of sin. I was like, whoa, I never thought of that.
Wow.
But since you still say, we see, your guilt remains. And Yeshua spoke about a couple of other things. But this is the gist of what happened concerning the blind man. And I'm telling you, it really, in my opinion, it stirred the pot.
Yeah. Well, Sandy and I, we've been out in the field too, and we've watched Yeshua do what he's done and a few times, and with the Talmudim and everything. So it's amazing. Yeshua never ceases to amaze, and yet everything he says is like manna from heaven. I don't know how else to explain it.
I think that's a pretty good way, because truly he is Messiah. Amazing stuff, Joe.
Really?
So am I to understand that you will be around for more reports on this matter? That is information concerning Yeshua and his Talmudim?
That's what I understand. Lamb has contracted me to bring as much as I can and when I can.
Good. Yeah, great stuff, Joe. It's like layer upon layer, the story unfolds. I feel closer to the Most High than I've ever known. I find that I seek more and more of whatever this man has to offer.
His words are life and light. Every day, my walk with the Most High continues to develop. I do seek more, but I find that it is more that I need more of whatever Yeshua brings to the table.
I agree. I too can't wait for more of what you'll be bringing to us, Joe.
Oh, thank you for having me on your show today. This has been a new experience for me, and I like it. I really like it. I pray the Father will open my eyes to see the world as he sees it. And I have now found that Yeshua is the one who will bring me that truth. Awesome. And he is pretty awesome.
Well, please keep the reports coming, Joe.
Yeah, I agree. Keep us updated. Thank you.
More. We need more of Yeshua. What's next, Mark?
Well, for right now, next is next week and whatever comes across our desk. That's what we'll report, Sandy.
Well, let's hope someone's documenting all these things Yeshua is doing here on this planet. I know people will want to know this stuff for generations to come.
You know, somebody could write down what they see, and we could get several different perspectives. Maybe you never know. I'm thinking for eternity. I'm thinking the world needs Yeshua for eternity. Maybe it will be written in the future, Sandy. Mrs. Craig, where do we go from here?
Say it.
Be blessed and be a blessing to everyone you come in contact with.
That's it for this edition of Newscasting Ancient Times. I'm Sandy Craig.
And I'm Mark David Smith. Shalom. Joe Cameron is in the house.
Man, you have me talking a lot.
I know it. I thought while I was writing it, but I thought, she'll do great on this. I didn't. You did a great job, Joe.
When I first saw it, I was just like, Home Alone.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Well, it was fun having you in there too.
It was fun. It really was. I practiced. I was sitting there going, "Well, Father, if I mess up, just give me the words of what I need to say."
Yeah, Sandy and I are pretty good at catching things and re-centering things and wording stuff. So we've been doing this a little while. I think this is like 28 or 29 of these we've done now.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I've kept track of these. I've had fun watching them. I watch if I don't watch them live, I'm watching the archives. So
cool.
If you're not watching these guys, you got to watch them. They're fun. And I think they'd be great for kids.
Well, I'm going to make a web page for just them so that they're in order and you can come in and watch them randomly. They stand alone. Each one of them stand alone, but my favorite one is still when the Israeli IDF came and arrested Yeshua for making wine at the wedding because it's like illegal alcohol there, and that was my funnest one.
You have two versions of that one because you have the one at Sukkot and the one.
Oh yeah.
So you have two versions.
We did that one. Well, I'm sorry. What'd you say?
And John's in there on that one. So
yeah, Joe, we did a couple of them. I brought the scripts to Sukkot of a couple different ones, and John played another part in there, and he just did great. It was like he just flowed right into it. It was so good. It was fun.
John's a character, though. You gotta love John.
He's all right.
My mom to this day, she still talks about John and Suitcoat when we went out there, and she goes, "Oh, just have so much fun with him." She goes, "You tell him he's my other son, so let him know
That's so sweet.
she's adopted him."
Speaking of John, he called me at 5:00 yesterday, and he said, "Sandy," he said, "I can't come home. I've got to work all night." He said, "I have to get these reports in." So hopefully, he said they're due, and I got to get it done so we can get paid. So hopefully he was able to keep his eyes open all night. I have a question for you guys, and this is going to take some thought. And I already think I know Mark's answer, but I saw this presented and I thought, that would be an interesting question for us to look at. If you could only listen to one band or performer or artist forever, what band would you be choosing? Not Christian or Hebrew roots or Messianic, outside a secular.
Secular.
Yeah, secular.
Yeah, you already know.
Oh,
what
wow,
my
that's
answer is. It's only
hard.
one.
I thought, Mark, say it.
Bob Dylan.
I know. You know who I would probably choose, and it'd be either Neil Diamond or Lionel Richie. I don't know. See, Neil Diamond. Okay, I have to tell you why. When I was growing up, we had a trip to Red River, and I was young, and we were going with mom and dad were going with a couple other couples, and the car that I was riding in had an 8-track of Neil Diamond, and they played it the whole way. And so as I was sleeping and listening, I heard all that. And to this day, Neil Diamond comes on. I'm like, oh, and it started because of that 8-track I was probably 9. I mean, I was a kid, and I heard that going over and over and over and over. So we got ours. What about you, Joe?
Oh God, I'm trying to think of his name. He wrote this. He wrote like, oh God, I can't think of the songs right now. He's in Las Vegas still singing, and he wrote like I write the songs.
I write the songs that make. Oh, Barry Manilow.
Yes, thank you. That's like the only.
That's a good one too. I like him too, so that could be on my list as well. Boy, are we?
My parents didn't allow us to listen to the radio.
Mine either.
We weren't. I brought a record one time. I bought the record. Okay, I bought a record, secular record. Brought it home to put it on my record player. I was so excited about it. My dad walks in my room and says, "What's that?" I says, "It's a new record. I'm so excited. My friend told me about it." He says, "Let me see the album cover." He looks at the cover. He comes very calmly, takes the record off the record player and goes, "Crack." And then puts it in the sleeve and looks at me and says, "This will not be allowed in my house. You get your own home. You can go listen to any garbage you want. But in my house, we don't listen to that." We listen to big bands. We listen to Christian. We listen to, believe it or not, Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, Bob Dylan.
Yeah, they're dead.
So, all that stuff. Plus, we listen to Hispanic music from Spain. Okay? Like, oh God, Que viva España, which is, Spain is great, okay?
What was the, do you remember the artist or the album that was broken in two?
It was the Bangles.
Yeah.
Walk like an Egyptian. Yeah.
So I wasn't allowed to have that stuff either. But when I went, I think I've told you guys before, when I was at the National Jewish Hospital living there for 6 months in that dorm-like atmosphere because I was so sick, I found an old, somebody had a stereo in one of the floors, and it was in an abandoned room, and I took it. Yeah, I stole it. I took it. It didn't belong to anybody, and I used it, and I turned on the radio, and that was 1980, and I found this whole world of music, and so when I came back home, I was 14, and when I came back home, I was like, I want to listen to this, and they were like, oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, we snuck the radio. You remember the radios that they had, those big, huge wood stereo systems
Mhm.
with the record player and the radio.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
Console. They call
console,
it
thank
console.
you. Yeah. We would sit there and we would take the dial and we would make sure we would take a piece of tape and put right where Dad would have the dial. And then when Dad and Mom weren't home, we would change the dial. And as soon as we heard Mom and Dad coming home, it's like the dial would change. We'd rip the tape off and we'd be sitting there with a book in our hand in the living room or run off to our room, you know. And my brother was sneaky. He would bring records home, and oh my God, the records my brother brought home. My brother listened to and I did get into punk. Okay. When I was in school, I was doing punk rock stuff, but my brother would listen to, believe it or not, Oingo Boingo.
I don't even know that.
Yeah, that's like a 70s.
Yeah, Oingo Boingo and all these other
Mhm.
punk like groups that he got his friends. They were his friends' records. So my dad couldn't break them because they were his friends' records. So if he got caught, he said, see, if I got caught, I'd say, nope, they're not mine. They're my friends. So you need to go talk to my friend's parents about it. Smart kid.
So don't do as we do as we say, kids. You know,
Exactly.
Joe's not giving you advice.
No, don't do this. No.
But
he did get in trouble. He did get in trouble. He got restricted.
You know, we're talking about the old stuff, like what you mentioned, Sandy, with like Neil Diamond and what happened with you. Donna and I mention this a lot anymore. We run onto things that, like, for instance, different music is like comfort music is really what it is because when that plays, it takes us to a time when everything was safe. Everything was comfortable. We didn't have to worry about the world stuff going on. And I mean, there's comfort music, comfort food, you know, there's all kinds of these things. And of course, with me at 69 now, I'm remembering all these different things. And we think about it quite often. There are just different things that help us to, you know, be comfortable.
It's also memorable.
It is true. Even when Joe mentioned the Bengals, I mean, both of us immediately, because that dates us. That's where we at. That's where we're at. And I immediately went back to, oh, that's so fun. I remember that time when listening to that and hearing that song and the songs that sort of surround them that really don't make sense, but you know.
Yeah, Barry Manilow reminds me of when I lived like in Washington State as a young 10-year-old child.
Yeah, because they're a little bit, they're both Neil Diamond, Barry Manilow, all that. They're a little bit older for us, but we heard them when we were young for one reason or another. And that's why they bring comfort. It's like Mark said, is because here I am a 9-year-old or so, and you're 10-year-old, and we heard those songs. So it brings us back to that time we were safe, protected, mom and dad, all that. So
yeah, I agree with you. All right. Well, Sandy's got a little bit of something she's going to share with us, and then Joe and I'll come back on and share with her. We'll be right back after this.
We'll be dancing in the streets, dancing at his feet, dancing in the streets of gold. We'll be dancing in the streets, dancing at his feet.
we're going to piggyback off what we were talking about 2 weeks ago. And we're going to move on to bitterness. And bitterness is something that is prevalent even when we don't realize it's there. It's really anger that's been turned inward, that's boiled, anger that's boiled and simmered, and then it's found so unpalatable that it has been thrown into the deep freeze of our unconscious minds. Yeah, we don't even realize it's there. It's hanging out, and it needs to thaw for sure, because cool anger turns into bitterness and resentment. Maybe it's the words of somebody else, or somebody sabotaged you or your project or something you're doing, or you are physically or emotionally abused, or other things. Wounds can last forever if we let them. I can't tell you how many times as a pastor I hear people continually referring to things that happened so many years ago. Well, they hurt me. Well, this hurt me. And they don't get over it. Oftentimes it's because there's something familiar just hanging on to that memory and they don't even know how, or maybe they don't want to. When we have this annoying tendency to leak out at inappropriate times, things that just happen, upsetting good relationships and disturbing our dreams, and it's filled us with this vague discontent, that's bitterness. Maybe it feels like we faced injustice, but whatever it is, it's this deep-seated resentment at whoever or whatever is upsetting us, and it's cold and it's gonna destroy us. And the worst part is that we think we've hidden it so well, but it shows on our face, it shows in our expressions, even in our tone of voice. And it results in things like indigestion, insomnia, back pain, headaches, heartaches, heart attacks. We can go on from there. Physical manifestation because of the feelings and the emotions of the anger that's been turned inward, that's turned into bitterness and resentment. Yeah, it messes with our bodies, our mind, and our spirit. We can't forget that. We're going to go to Hebrews 12 through 17. And I'm going to actually read it out of a different version this time because it really sort of puts some life into it, but it's very similar to the other versions. It says, so take a new grip with your tired hands and strengthen your weak knees. Mark out a straight path for your feet so that those who are weak and lame will not fall, but become strong. Work at living in peace with everyone and work at living a holy life, for those who are not holy will not see Yehovah. Look after each other so that none of you fails to receive the grace of Elohim, which watch out that no poisonous root of bitterness grows up to trouble you, corrupting many. Make sure that no one's immoral or godless like Esau, who traded his birthright as the firstborn for a single meal. You know that afterward, when he wanted his father's blessing, he was rejected. It was too late for repentance, even though he begged with bitter tears. Here we see that root of bitterness that defiles us and makes us useless. We actually, when we are carrying around this stuff, we lose the anointing and the inspiration from Yah because we can't even hear correctly, or maybe we can't hear at all. It keeps us from receiving his blessings, and it causes all of this sickness and arthritis and heart disease. And the big thing too is it hurts other people around us, and it opens the door for Hasatan to take a bigger grip on our lives and even to try to reach through us to get a hold of other people. It's like bindweed. I don't know if you guys have it in your area, but in our area, bindweed's a big deal. It comes up, its root is so deep that you can't really ever dig it up, and it's hard to even kill it. But it will wrap itself around any plant or object, and chokes it, and chokes the life out of it. And no matter how hard you try to get rid of it, it just doesn't seem to go away. We're not going to stay there for long, but I do not like bindweed because of those very things. But bitterness has a root just like that. It goes deep, deep down, and it's hard, maybe even impossible without Yeshua to get rid of it. It's like a seed or a thought that grows, and you womb it in your mind, and over a period of time, it just gets bigger and bigger, and an attitude begins to grow up in your life, or a thought, or even just when you hear something or see something, an immediate reaction that's out of your flesh, not out of your spirit, that's not thought about. It spreads and contaminates everything in your life, and you can't get the thoughts out of your head. You can't get that incident out of your head, and you view and treat others with that very root, and you don't even realize you're doing it. It's a mask. It's a cover, but it has an ugly face. And to willfully allow roots of bitterness to grow in your life is like knowingly let the enemy coming in, the Hasatan, to just come in and take over and affect everything around you, because it's like a wave. It's not just you. It is everything around you, everyone. This discontentment, this resentment, this murmuring in your heart, it grows and grows and begins to cover and affect everything around you. That's what bitterness does. So you try to catch it at the very beginning and remove it so that it doesn't root deeply in you. We've got to do it, folks. And if we haven't done that, then we may have to have some help to get rid of what's there. Because if we could shine a light in a room full of people that would show bitterness, I think we would be surprised at how many of us are actually carrying that around. Because when things on the outside have contaminated the things on the inside, It affects us. This root, it takes a lot of work to get rid of it, but we've got to do it. No matter how careful we are, when life seems to beat you up time and time and time again, this thing can creep in and take hold in your life. It can take hold, and we can't let that happen. So one thing that makes us hard to identify it is because we can easily spot it in others, but we have a hard time seeing this thing in our very own lives. We don't use the word bitterness for ourselves. No, we'll say things like, well, I'm just cautious, or I'm careful, or I'm not angry, I'm determined, or I'm ready. If you don't call it what it is, you aren't going to be able to deal with it, folks. It is what it is. Do you have walls up? Do you have these feelings, these caution flags? Guys, there's a very likely chance there's a root of bitterness there, because you need to deal with the why, not that reason. Okay. Well, stop making excuses for yourself. It's not going to help you. When you don't deal with bitterness, it continues to grow, and it wants you. It contaminates your judgment. It contaminates everything that you see. You see things through false eyes, and you judge accordingly, because there's a wall of expectation, and nobody's going to be able to cross that. And if you know what, if you allow that bitterness in, then you aren't even going to be able to relate to people and have relationships that you need to, because you have developed other things, roots and judgment and walls and things that people can't climb over, around, or even get through, because everything is seen really as it isn't. And we can't talk about bitterness without going back a few Torah portions ago and talk about marah. When we see that root, that Hebrew root marah, we can recognize it immediately. We see things like Miriam, Mary, those things. And when they were at Marah and they had bitter water, yeah, we can immediately go back there and think, well, that story, what does that describe to us? Well, let's just briefly go there for a moment. And on our way there, let's look at Matthew 13, 2, and it says that offense can steal the word out of the heart. Okay, we remember that. Proverbs 18:19, a brother offended is harder to be won than a strong city, and their contentions are like the bars of a castle. So I want you to hold those two ideas in your mind as we go to Exodus 15:23, because that is very familiar since we just crossed that. And it says, and when they came to Marah, they could not drink the waters of Marah, before they were bitter. Therefore, the name of it was Marah. Okay, 3 times we hear that. 3 times. Does y'all make mistakes? Why would he do that? Why did he give us this story 3 times? Well, I'm going to give you a story of a woman who was meticulously making breakfast for her husband. And he had 2 different kinds of eggs. So she scrambled, and she worked hard at scrambling the eggs. He had 1 scrambled and 1 fried. I know that's different, folks, but this is what happened. So she worked hard at doing both, and she took the time and she scrambled the eggs to perfection and fried the other one just as she knew her husband would like it, or liked it. And when he looked at it, he frowned and said, "You fried the wrong egg." Really? But aren't we like that? Don't we pick something apart and find a reason to criticize? Root of bitterness, folks. Yeah. And that's sometimes how we treat Yah. So let's go back to bitter. Miriam. First, we need to look at that word. And the pictograph is revealing a person of chaos with his mind. Bitterness is essentially disordered existence. Wow. Chaos in your life? Does chaos exist around something or someone, or maybe everything? Take a look. Disordered existence. Bitter. And actually, there are 3 possible roots when you look at this word. And one is found in the Hebrew and the Aramaic, and it's room, and it means to be high, exalted, and prideful. Can't tell you how many times that pride keeps us from doing what we should do. Asking forgiveness, saying I'm sorry, recognizing those things in our very own life, because we're perfect, right? No. Another possible word is marah, which means to be bitter in the sense of being rebellious, contentious, and fault-finding. Are we fault finders? Do we pick things apart? Do we say, you're not telling me what to do? Who do you think you are? Rebellion? contention. Wow. I think when we look at these, we can find these things in ourselves probably more often than we would like to. And the third one, Marar, is bitter in tasting. Okay, so go back. Now they came to Marah where they could not drink the waters of Marah, for they were bitter, and therefore the name of it was called Marah. Okay, 3 times. 3 times. Literature, studies we know said that those waters were bitter. Now that means they were drinkable. It just didn't taste good. Okay, they were drinkable. Just ugh. Now, when we go back to things we've studied and things before, it's that the people were bitter. It reflected what was within every heart. There was a bitter root within them. And so the water itself was bitter and distasteful because the people were complaining, contentious, fault-finding, prideful, rebellious. All of those things were within the people. Now we can point our finger and say, whoa, those people. But in reality, those things are probably in you and I too. At least maybe they have been, or maybe you're perfect and none of those things have ever existed. I don't know. But what is reflected in our lives? Do we judge things quickly? Do we recognize those areas of our lives that cleaned up? Or do we want to wait until the great tribulation, when the world is falling apart and we have to go through that kind of judgment to get the junk out of us that needs to come out of us? I would say that it's time that we recognize the bitter waters that are within us, that bitter root that's grown deep, and those emotions when pressed that come forward, those thoughts that come up when we have a reoccurring incident, when we see something or someone that's hurt us in the past, or it maybe it's just become so huge in you or I or someone else that really our whole life is skewed because there's something that's grown deep. I think of somebody in particular right now when I'm even talking about this, and I see a wall that's been built up, and there's what was once beautiful emotion is now cautious. And I think the circumstances around them has been horrific, actually. And are they justified? Absolutely. But it doesn't matter how justified you are to feel the way you are. It's time you let it go, folks. It's time that we stop being prideful, that we stop letting our judgment be skewed because we refuse to see the very things within our lives that are affecting the way we react around others, the way we relate, the way we think, and the way we judge, and the way we see bitterness. Let's dig up the root. Let's do it together sometimes. Go get help, whatever it takes. It's time to get rid of the root. Joe, Mark.
I feel so much better now that you've got that out, Sandy. And now everything is open, and I'm free of all my roots and all this kind of stuff. So. I of course, obviously, I've got notes here. I wrote down the number one thing, of course, is root of. I mean, that has been kind of a not a trigger word, but a word that a lot of people throw out there anymore, and it's more of like they want to use that to describe where something comes from or go back to, or it's kind of like the basics of that type of thing. And of course, it's the number one thing all psychologists go to. How did you feel about your father? What did your mother do to you? And all of those things. So it's a real big thing to go back to those roots. I mean, you can find out where your entire world is made up of from your roots. And then you've got the root of bitterness. And it's like, I think that root, to me, starts in when you're growing up. You know, what is embedded into you by your parents or by the influencers around you. You know, if they're bitter or if they constantly complain about things, or their perspective of the world is everything's bad, everything's coming against us, everything is going to overthrow us, you know, all that type of thing. I think those roots cause us to think a certain way, have a certain perspective of life, and then what was it you said? It grows. It grows, and you become obsessed with certain things that you don't even know you're. Oh, hello, am I here?
You're here.
My whole computer system just blipped. It left and came back. So anyway, I think that's kind of that root of bitterness. I mean, I like to go back, but I think that's it. I think all these different things that we have, and it's so hard to get rid of because it was embedded in us. It's like having Neil Diamond embedded in your head, you know. And it's kind of that same thing. Only most of the things that we're embedded with growing up or influenced by are so hard to get. They're the hardest things to get rid of because they've been there for so long and they become your way of life. You don't even think about it when you do it. When you complain about somebody or when you offend somebody, you get to a point where, I mean, a lot of people, they've done it for so long, that's just who they are. It's that bitterness and everything. It's just who they are. And it's to a point where unless somebody points it out to you, then you don't even know you got it. I don't think most people know that they have a root of bitterness. I really don't. I don't think most people realize that when they talk to people the way they do, or they treat people a certain way, they don't really get it.
But see, that's why we have to do our own heart examination. And honestly, you're right. Those things can become so deeply rooted, you need deliverance. And because it's a spirit, I mean, it becomes a spirit, a stronghold, and it brings in friends. And their deliverance does need to come, but we don't recognize it. But that's why we've got to swallow our pride and start looking inwardly at our own lives. And I'm talking to myself. We are responsible for us. Cannot change anyone else, just us. So we have to examine our hearts, or Yah will. And that's going to be, when he uproots that stuff in us, that when we were unwilling to do it ourselves, that's going to be a little bit harsher. So
this is the reprogramming handbook. The reprogramming handbook. It's too bad most people don't start with the handbook and then don't need to be reprogrammed later on. But that's the way I see it.
Joe.
You know me, I go back to the garden. You have this weed that goes so deep into the ground, like Mark was talking about the root. It goes so deep in the ground, and then it starts to spread, and it starts to choke the plants. And it takes a lot of pulling, but sometimes a little bit of what I use is vinegar and soap helps to kill the roots, which, Mark, if you can lift up that vinegar and soap again, which is God's word, we forget that. And when you were talking about bitterness, all of a sudden what came to mind, as a little girl, I watched Sleeping Beauty. And I don't know if you remember the scene where the wicked woman goes, and around the castle, she puts all these thorns to where the prince has to come and cut the thorns to get to the princess to kiss her, right? And I was thinking about that, and the father sat there and says, I'm the prince. I'm cutting down those thorns for you if you'll let me, so that I can get to you. But you have to let him, because remember, if you go through and watch that scene again, you will see that the prince has a hard time because all of a sudden the thorns start growing again. More of the thorns start growing, and it gets deeper and thicker and thicker and thicker. And he's trying so hard to break these thorns. And I had an incident in my life where I didn't realize I was being bitter towards it. And my granddaughter, my almost 8-year-old granddaughter, at the time she was 4, she starts singing a song. And I knew it was from the Father because it was Let It Go, the song from Frozen, thank you. And she's dancing around going, let it go, let it go. That's all she's singing is let it go. She don't know the rest of the song. She just knows let it go. I went in my room and I went, Father, I'm letting it go. So we need to learn to let it go. And in fact, one of the verses that came to me was in Ephesians 4:31-32. It says, get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as Yeshua, Jesus, God forgave you. We forget to be like Yeshua. We forget to be loving, kind, patient, long-suffering, the fruits of the Spirit. And we proclaim to be believers, and yet we're sitting there, rah, rah, rah. You know what? That doesn't look good to those that are non-believers. They look at that and they go, why do I want that? When you're going to be a bitter person, you know, don't be looking at that. The other thing is, as a friend of mine and I used to do, I got to sit back a little bit. We used to go, so I'm judging you. I'm judging you. If you get what we're doing is we're putting that big plank in our eye. As a joke, we were joking around about it, but we were being serious as well because we were trying to remind ourselves we still have that plank in our own eye, and we better go look in the mirror and remove that first before we go looking at everybody else. And what would Yeshua do? It's that simple. What would Yeshua do? Yeshua didn't have bitterness when he was beaten. Yeshua didn't have bitterness when he was spat on. Yeshua did not have bitterness when they put the crown of thorns upon his head. Yeshua did not have bitterness towards the soldiers that sat there and nailed him to the cross. Yeshua did not have bitterness when they whipped him and laughed at him and mocked at him. He did not have any bitterness. He looked up while he was on that cross suffering for us, and he said what? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And the last thing I'm going to say is a memory from our sister, Sherry Flanagan. She used to say, girl, when you have that bitterness towards someone, you start praying for them. No matter if you're gritting your teeth, just grit your teeth and pray for them, because eventually you're going to start loving them.
That's right.
And that's one thing that I took from my sister, and I still run with it, is pray for someone, that person that you're bitter towards, pray for them. Because guess what? When you're praying for that person, you're forgetting about that bitterness, and God is able to go and take that sword and start cutting down those thorns.
Yep. Very good. Very good.
Yeah. I don't know how many times I've told people, I've said, pray for the person that has upset you. Pray for them. And eventually your heart, even the way you begin to pray for them, and don't just pray under your breath, pray out loud, because your tone, you'll notice that your tone will eventually change because your heart will change. But here is the big problem is pride. I think the biggest thing in dealing with bitterness, once you recognize it's there, or we even know that's not true, because even when you refuse to see that it's there, it's pride. It's pride. Because we refuse to ask forgiveness and we refuse to say, I'm sorry. And I know, Mark, apologize. And I know we've had a program on that. But I'm still one who believes that you do both for relationship. Even if you believe you're innocent, you still do both for relationship. And usually not everybody's innocent. Usually everybody plays a part, even if it's perceived incorrect. But we grow bitterness because we lack forgiveness. And we forget that he who has been forgiven much loves much, but also that the word says, if you're not going to forgive and let that go, then why am I going to do that for you? We've got to remember that parable.
That's good. That's good. You said once you recognize And there's really I think is really that what I want to say, decision, turning point, all those different things. But it's so what happens so many times is that once you recognize really where the problem is and what you have to deal with, so many times people justify what they're doing instead of changing, instead of going a different direction or praying for the person or whatever really needs to be done. They've learned in their life that that's too much work to have to change. That's too much work to have to, I know I'm wrong. I know, well, maybe I'm not really wrong here. I could be wrong over here, but with this instance, I'm really not wrong there. And the reason is, and see, we justify whatever we have to do, and just justifying something can be the real evil part of this. Because when you decide to justify something, now you're not even going to try to make it right.
Correct. Yes.
You're just going to justify it.
Well, Mark, you did it. You did it, and so why can't I do it?
That's true.
Kind of attitude.
True,
it's like a child. We haven't really. If you look at the scriptures, it says children. It never says adults. We are like a bunch of little children. Well, Johnny did it, so I'm mad at Johnny. I mean, it's like the story you told about Amariah a couple weeks back, where the girls were getting.
I don't like your face.
Yeah. It's pretty much the same concept, because Amariah could have taken that and became bitter and says, well, I don't like them either, and I don't like their face. So there, I have the right to say I don't like their face because they said they didn't like my face. So I have the justification of saying I don't like their face.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much the simplicity of bitterness is, well, they did it, so why can't I? So I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that hits a chord? That is, when I look at the stats on Planet, who's watching the archives, that is the most watched one. The one that I have. We have this, and then I don't like your face, because somehow that relates to people. But I think both of you, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, all I can say is it's time. Times are so short. We just have to work diligently at maybe pulling things back in our own lives and examining our hearts deeply, so we can work on getting rid of that stuff before other things happen. That's all I can say.
Examine that gown, that armor.
Yeah,
like you talked about in this past Shabbat. I think it was this past Shabbat or the Shabbat before that, where we need to shine up that armor. We need to look at and see what things we got on that armor. And we forget to do that because we're too busy looking at everybody else's clothes or armor or glasses or well, look at that guy's hair or whatever. We're so focused on everybody else, we forget to focus on ourselves and what we need to do. And the first and foremost thing, from all the way back to Genesis, all God asked was listen and obey. Boom. Listen and obey. And do we listen and do we obey? No, we don't. We're like little toddlers running around doing what we want.
We need to do do a Barney Fife. Nip it in the bud. Nip it in the bud.
Yeah.
And Mark, I don't like your face.
Well, nip it in the bud. I love it. All right. Good. Great stuff.
Good. That's a good segment. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mark, for everything you said.
Oh, every once in a while it's halfway decent. So, we're there. All right. We're going to talk a little about other stuff. We'll be right back.
We'll be dancing in the streets. Let's all go to the lobby.
This series they need to make more. Worst movie ever made. That's my favorite one because it puts me up on the movie screen. So.
I
And
know.
my only chance to ever be on the movie screen, so
It's a good one though, Mark.
it is.
It is a
It's a
good
good one. It's fun when I like that. All right. Well, media moment. Sandy and I have talked about this for a couple of weeks to do this, and I had not thought of it. We put this together really yesterday to do this for the third, but I wish I'd have mentioned it to Joe. Joe, have you ever seen the movie Free Guy with Ryan Reynolds?
No, I don't think
No,
so.
you haven't. Well,
The title doesn't bring any memories.
Yeah.
So no.
Sandy and I have both seen it, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it so I can explain it and explain kind of our segment for this third is about artificial intelligence. And this movie, though you wouldn't really get that out of most of the first part of the movie when you're watching it, you wouldn't really get that. But then as the movie goes on, it starts developing the story and you realize what's really happening. And every one of us, so to say, have played a video game. Okay. Some of us have played more than others. Okay, Sandy, so you've seen people play video games. And, you're a character. I mean, once you're running the controls and everything, you're actually one of the characters in the video game. And then there's all these other things and other characters in the game, but they aren't real. They're just part of the game to make the game better, because you don't want to just play a game and you're just there and really all you're doing is doing this. They've got, other characters in the game. Well, that's what this movie's about. Is basically it's called Free Guy. It's Ryan Reynolds, and it's got Ryan Reynolds is the main character, is running through, and all these different things are happening like they would in a very avid video game. Things are going around and everything. And Ryan Reynolds is he's in a bank. He works in a bank, and he's the same as everybody else. But then you find out that he's not actually a real person playing the game. He's actually one of the characters in the game. But what the programmers of the game have done is they've allowed their AI to just figure out what to do with the game. And so what happens is the AI takes Ryan Reynolds' character and makes it so he can start thinking like a human, because isn't that what is programmed for AI, is to learn and think and reason and be able to figure things out and that type of thing. So you find out as it goes along, you get farther down, you find out that Ryan Reynolds' character is not even real. He's another character in this part of the game that has now started to reason things. He's making his own decisions. He's doing things that the other characters can't figure out. Why are you doing this? This is not what we do in the game. Type of thing.
The guy.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's really, in a fun way, revealing what is really going on with the whole artificial intelligence world in general. It's what's happening. I mean, Free Guy's good, but it's so interesting because, well, I real quickly, and I really was gonna do this, but I want to share this real quick. Entire screen. Where is this at? I got that over there. Okay, it's over here. Let me share this with you. For instance, like here's the poster from Free Guy. You can see all the different things. By the way, Ryan Reynolds is. You're talking about music, your favorite old music. Ryan Reynolds is my favorite on all that. But I have a video clip and all that, but we won't play it. We get the gist of what the idea is here. So in case nobody had ever seen that before. Anyway, we're also familiar with the old movies like Terminator. And if you're not familiar with them, the whole concept of this whole series of movies is that artificial intelligence has taken over years before and developed its own robots. It's developed its own whole culture, and it eventually takes over everything and takes over the earth. Well, it's interesting to me that it's more and more. When let's just say a year ago, there was so much controversy. And even Sandy, you and I even talked about this. There was so much controversy. Even the big shots were all saying that they should be scared of this because you don't know what's going to happen. And
I actually think it was like September. August.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. It was last year that we did this, and they were coming out, and it was on the social media shows and all that kind of stuff. And they were a big hubbub about it. But now, just say 6 months later, it's nothing but positive. Everything's positive. Aren't you glad this has got AI, so it's going to make it so much easier on you? Aren't you glad AI is involved in this? I just saw an interview with somebody that is a copywriter. That's what she does for a living, for a business. And she was saying that she works for one of the biggest publishing houses in the United States, and her and 8 other copywriters all lost their job in one day because AI can do everything that they do and they don't have to pay for it. It just does it because they already have AI in their system. 9 people lost their job in one day. And they even knew that the company was bringing in this AI into their business and everything. They knew it. They just didn't know that it was going to take over their jobs. So it's happening. It's big. It's not going to stop. And another thing, we had actually talked about this. I want to do this and then we'll talk about this more. But I think this is fascinating if you really want to know, is we talked about this commercial on the show Sandy and I did, and I never actually got to play it. So I want to play it now. Watch this. Start over. There you go. Stop screen. I'm sorry, I didn't put sound on. So I want you to be able to hear the sound on this. Share audio tab. I guess that's okay. How interesting. Okay, I hope this works. Hope you're able to hear this. I'm going to play it. Tell me if you don't.
Hi. It's me. Jennifer Lopez. chief celebration of his virgin.
Oh my, sorry. It went out on you. It ate up my bandwidth. It
Yeah.
ate it up, and I'm probably real low right now, aren't I?
Yeah.
Let me just shut that off. Is my oh no. I don't want to reboot. I'm so sorry. Let me take this off. Let me get this out of here.
Well, I was
Okay.
going to say, while you're doing that, I know now that if you watch commercials closely, you'll see there's AI instead of people. So now, I mean, we already had computer games, so the computer were the people. But now, I mean, you can tell right now, you can still tell which ones are the AI a little. If you look closely, you have to look closely. But your commercial actors are now oftentimes just AI.
Mhm.
Look at their hands. My son, Michael, works as a cyber security guy for a big company that's contracted with the government. And he says, all you do is if you look at the small details, they still haven't got it. The hands, sometimes you'll see 6 fingers instead
But
of
even
5
the
or
face,
4.
though, I found that even the face doesn't quite
Yep.
animate like our faces.
Yep. It's what they call a deep fake as well. It's another
Uh-huh.
word for it is deep
Yeah.
fake. I saw on, I think it was World News Tonight or something like that. China has already started production of artificial humanoid robots. You know, and we already have all these movies. You mentioned Terminator. We have movies like on Amazon Prime called The Feed, Upload. I don't know if you guys ever heard of the
Yeah,
show called
yeah.
Upload, where he dies and they upload him onto a computer.
That's right. Uh-huh.
And iRobot, AI, even the Matrix. You know, you're plugged
Don't you
into the
trash
computer.
my Matrix. Don't you say
No,
anything bad
I
about
like the movie. I like the movie. Don't get me wrong. The movie's good.
You're right. You're right.
But I'm
That's
just
exactly
saying
what it
that these are the things that they have put in. And, you know, the other day I watched with Dave the black and white version of 1984. And it was kind of interesting because they were using the radio frequencies, you know, to brainwash the people and do what they did. And I sat there and says, well, right there shows artificial intelligence. My dad was a radioman in the United States Navy. And before he passed, he mentioned a few things. And he says, did you know that back when they started the TVs and everybody could see the TV and watch the TV, he says, not all TVs, but there were a lot of TVs that already could hear what you were saying. If you can see it and hear it, they can already hear and see you. He says that was already set up in the 1950s. He was a radioman for the United States Navy, and the things that he heard on the airwaves, he did not tell me the exact stuff that he heard, but he says the things I heard, he says they were talking about what's happening today. Congressmen and high officials in the United States military and Pentagon talking to ships and talking back and forth. My dad was the guy, the go-between at the time. And they were talking about things like this that we're seeing today. He says everything you're seeing today, they were already preparing back in the 50s.
Technology you see today, in reality, it's at least 50 years more or 50 to 100 years more advanced than what we will see. So we think this is the top of the line. No, they are at least 50 years more advanced than what we are actually seeing.
Right.
Well, and if you watch The Feed, I don't know if you've seen I'm sure, Sandy, you've seen The Feed, haven't you? Where they put in your telephone and you go like this. Well, you go like this with your phone and you dial and then all of a sudden a thing pops up. They already have that.
Right.
If they're showing it to us in a movie, they already have it. Just like, remember the 1960s, we got Star Trek.
Yeah.
You know, now we've got these things.
Yeah.
They were flip phones.
Next generation, Star Trek, next generation.
But I think one of the things that is very cautionary that you see in Free Guy is that once the AI first didn't know it was just AI, it thought it was real, human. But once that one part of the AI began to and let the rest of the AI know that there was a world beyond what they
That's
could
right.
see and understand, the desire for all of those AI characters or the AI itself to expand and grow and break free of the bonds of man and their restrictions was very evident. And that's what we see in movies is the AI has very much self-realization, and they don't want to be controlled or do the bidding or the servant or the slave of the master any longer. They want to be their own. But what's the next step that comes after that, which we've seen in movies, in so many movies, that the AI wants to be the master. And because they are perfect, they do not make, it does not make mistakes in its thought process or in its calculations. Therefore, since we are fallible, that the AI must be the lead and we become the servant.
That's
And
like iRobot.
that is iRobot, but that is, and actually it's more than that. You see that, that's why AI, I think it was some of the leaders that we had talked about before. I think, wasn't Bill Gates one of them, said we've got to be cautionary.
Yeah, Elon Musk and
Elon Musk, because they know, and their voices have been silenced because you've got to play along with the game plan of the world, the world order. But that's a real thing, is that how we it's like, okay, we can go with the analogy of another movie, for example. What happens when something that you've created takes over? Let's go to Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
I haven't seen any of the recent ones, but
True.
I do know that the premise is that they've become out of control and they've changed society, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's the very same thing.
It is.
Movies are prophetic. I'm not saying they do it. They are prophetic, like of God, but the people and the powers that be show what they're doing in movies.
Yeah.
They were like, these sheeple, these useless eaters are so stupid. They're not going to realize that we're telling them what we've already done, and they're just going to go along with it. And that way, they're acclimated when it happens.
I've got a better word for you. It's called conditioning.
Conditioning is the right word.
Is exactly what's been happening for a long time. And when we get used to it, and it's so subtle, it's so in the background, it's so exciting, it's so entertaining that we want it. We want it. We want to see it. We want to know more. That's fascinating. You mean this really could happen? This kind of thing. I mean, mankind itself is always fascinated with what could happen. What is going to happen in the future. It's the one thing we have absolutely no control over knowing is what will happen in the future. And these movies, TV shows, these concepts are all bringing what we can't have to in front of our face. And the agenda is conditioning. Even if they don't know that that's what they're doing, that's exactly what's happening spiritually.
So Mark,
yeah.
This fruit, isn't it beautiful? You say God said not to eat of it or to touch it.
Right. Well,
I mean, we're coming back. We're going back to the same thing. Like I said earlier in the show, it's listen and obey, and we're not listening and obeying, and we're starting to do the same thing that we did back in Genesis, because we want that tree of knowledge. We want that knowledge. We want to be able to build that robot. We want to be able to succeed. We want to be able to sit in our homes, put that virtual reality little thing on our heads and just pew, 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 whatever you like to play and sit there. Well, guess what it says in the scripture as well? It says, the lazy man doesn't eat. And we've become more and more lazy.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have to where we have AIs are going to end up going and doing our crops. And they're going to say, well, you know what? We're finding out that worms are more healthy for you. So we're going to give you worms.
Yeah.
And the AI is right. The other day I was telling Dave, a friend of the family's is a nurse, sat there and says, I'm really frustrated because the doctors today are going on the computers, looking at the computer and seeing what it says. And sometimes computers have glitches, correct? They do. And this one
No.
guy, for example, she says this didn't really happen, but she gave an example. She says this one guy had come in for an issue with the stomach, and the doctor walks in and says, yeah, we're going to have to amputate your arm. What are you talking about? I came in here because of my stomach. No. Here on the computer, it says we got to amputate your arm.
Yeah.
There's been big mistakes in the hospitals because of that.
Yeah.
I've actually heard
Sure.
from other people in the medical field that doctors are no longer able to diagnose because they became so reliant on computer and just trusted that on their own, the art and the learned thing of diagnosing and other things is now gone in most doctors. They don't have that ability because they're not even trained that way anymore. They're not even trained. So you don't have a true diagnostician when you go to the hospital.
They're not using their brain that God gave
Yeah.
them anymore.
And
They're
it's-
using an artificial intelligence to tell them what to do, what not to do. Here soon, they're going to start telling these things are going to tell us, okay, it's time for you to go to the bathroom. Now it's 8 a.m. You got to go take your shower.
Okay.
And we're going to be like robots.
Okay, let's go there then. This is another movie, and I'm being Mark today. The Island.
Yeah.
Remember The Island? I don't know if y'all ever seen it, but they
Business
every day that the computer was monitoring every part. Oh, well, you can't have bacon today because your sodium's too high, or you can't do this. So everything. Well, you do need to go to the bathroom now and do the. I mean, literally every part of
Oh,
their
yeah.
lives was monitored and looked at and compared, etc. Of course, there were other purposes behind all that, but that's not the point. The point
Yeah.
is that they've shown us that wouldn't that be the ultimate goal, is to control you and everything you do, because they only need so many people to serve them, to work the fields for them, et cetera, et cetera. That's why the agenda is to get rid of so many people, is because they tax the system. They just need so many slaves to serve the higher powers that are running the show.
Sure.
How do you do that? You get rid of the person's free will. Your free will is right here in your brain. This part of your brain is your thought process, your decision process, and everything. So what are they going to do? They're going to get rid of your free will. They're going to sit there and they're going to put something there. And that thing there is not just going to be some mark. It's going to be something that's going to change you. It's going to make you almost into an AI, to where you're not going to be able to think.
You know where I want to go. I'm not going to go with that right now. But anybody when you've had certain things pushed into your body, it is now proven. It's not any kind of theory. You have now become a receiver, and you can see that on Wi-Fi. The people that are living are now Wi-Fi receivers because what was put into their body by choice. Some were forced.
Exactly right. Yeah.
But don't you think there's a reason for that? Don't you think there is a reason that now we have the capability of processing or being a receiver for AI information, for other information, for computer information, et cetera, et cetera? People have, and to control, you said to control right here. People willingly have given up the control of their own lives because of fear and because of threat of what could be or may not be or whatever they say. And when you grasp a hold of that, I mean, that's what's happened in our nation too. You give up freedoms because of the threat that might be, or what the society tells you. Oh, you better give this up, or this could happen, or this could happen. Just turn it over to me and I'll take care of you.
You mean like Minority Report, where Tom Cruise walks into a store with somebody else's eyes and they go, oh, Mr. Smith, or whatever the guy's name, or Yakahona or whatever, and says, you would love these jeans. You would love this. You would love that. And they don't even drive their own cars anymore. Everything is controlled. And we go back to even George Orwell's book, 1984.
Right.
He sat there and wrote it years ago, I believe he was trying to warn the people that, hey, this is happening, and I'm going to write the book to try to forewarn the people, but no one's listening, because we've, like the blind man that the thing with the blind man, Yeshua sat there, says, they will they will not be able to see, even though they see. They will not be able to hear, even though they hear. They won't be able to listen because their frequency has changed, because they changed it with like what you were talking about, okay? To where they have a different frequency. It's like when you go on a CB radio, you got channel 22, you know, that's the channel you're on. That's our channel to go, you know, channel 7 is connected to God, and man goes to channel 26 now, you know?
Yeah, 1 minute. 1 minute. We got to finish. Go ahead. Finish it.
I was just saying that it's like different channels, and man has taken his channel and removed God from the channel.
I agree. It's a good way to look at it. You bet. Sandy, any other last words real quick?
Oh, I could go on and on, but we'll have to
we
for
could.
another show.
Huge subject. And it's here, and it's now, and it's today. And you want to look into the future? Just look at AI, and you'll get a good idea what we're looking at. So, very interesting stuff. That's all there is to it. I actually did I had something I couldn't get done in one of my softwares, and I was looking for a fix for it. I typed in, just a brief thing on it, and the next thing I know, the whole page comes up, and I start seeing this type out, line, word by word, letter by letter. And when it was done, it had the exact information I needed in full detail of what to do to go solve it. I did it. It solved the problem, but I had no idea I was asking AI to do that, and it just did it. So you don't even know, and there it is. So, all right, everybody, we love you. We thank you so much for coming and watching the show. Joe, thanks a million for coming on and having fun with us. And Joe is now on Thursday War Room with Judith. And so, are you glad to be back, Joe?
Oh God, I missed you guys.
Well, we're glad to have you back. And
let's say the roller coaster I was on was not fun.
Yeah. The only one we're missing is Sherry here today. So of our old.
That's right. Here's the next chapter. The next chapter cast is right here. So
That's right. All right. Well, we need to get out of here. So thank you, everybody, for joining us, and hopefully we'll be back next week. And thanks again, Joe. Have a great week. Shavua Tov. If you missed the show and you want to watch it again or tell somebody about it, go to the lambnetwork.tv website and go to On Demand. We'll see you all later. Bye.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hugi, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.
We'll be dancing in the streets, dancing at his feet, dancing in the streets of gold.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Biblical Prepping. I'm Judith Garten. This is the prepper portion. This is going to be an interesting video for you. I don't know how much I'm going to get talked about before we have to eat. And I might become a silent movie in a few minutes. We'll see. But what we're going to do today is for tonight's dinner and probably leftover for tomorrow night's dinner, because I'm praying that my mixed up recipe here will make enough for us to enjoy into tomorrow night's Sabbath dinner. It is preparation day, and I'm trying to do multiple things at the same time. I have bagels in the oven. I'll link to that video. And we're going to be using up some food storage and some yard trash in a pot of lentil soup. Intrigued? Let's get going. Okay, so for this soup, I'm going to start with the recipe. The recipe is one that I've had on Biblical Prepping for a number of years. I actually created this recipe because Jim and I love a lentil soup that was made by a large manufacturer. I was able to mimic their creation without all of their salt, without all of their icky ingredients, weird named products added to it. This was created so that we could use freeze-dried foods. Now, currently on our website, biblicalprepping.com, I only have up the recipe using the freeze-dried foods. I'm going to be changing that up today because we used to market a particular brand of freeze-dried foods. We don't anymore, so I'm going to be changing that recipe for you and just putting in the words freeze-dried. You can also use dehydrated products in this as well if you have dehydrated vegetables. The base for this soup not only makes a great Italian lentil soup, but leave the lentils out and throw in mixed vegetables, and you have a really wonderful vegetarian vegetable soup that also is like one of the ones made by a different manufacturer. Now, I will say today my version is not technically vegetarian because I am going to be using home canned chicken broth. Now, what I am going to do is tell you what the ingredients are that I've got assembled here. And if you want to go look at the recipe, please go look at biblicalprepping.com. It's under the PDF section where you can print out a copy of the one using the freeze-dried or dehydrated foods. What we're going to be doing today is trying to get rid of some of the things that we have in the pantry and in the refrigerator. So, as our basis, this has a tomato broth to it. I have here, that front pot is our lentils, all ready to rock and roll. I have here a pan of leftover gravy. Gravy in our house, if you hear me use that term, is not the brown stuff you put on meat and potatoes. Gravy in our house is, because this is how Jim's family has always said it, is the red stuff you put on spaghetti. So I have in here a leftover half a pot, and I grabbed another container out of the freezer that needs to get rotated through. So that is ready to go. I started this year canning spaghetti sauce again, and I'm so excited. So I got to get rid of whatever's in the freezer. Now that is already full of herbs and spices. It's got onion, garlic, oregano, basil, and parsley in it. But I am actually going to add more of whatever's needed. So I have my herbs here in case I need them. So we're starting with water and that as our sauce. I will be adding water as I go along. Next, you need some chopped onion and some chopped garlic. Now, I'm going to move these off the table in case the table gets wiggly. These are broth, chicken broth, that I have had in the pantry since last fall. They need to get used, so we're rotating. And waste not, want not. We're going to set these over here. That is the chicken broth. Now, I hate peeling garlic. Don't forget your extra virgin olive oil. Hate peeling garlic. But a while ago, we watched cooking classes, and it is so simple to just peel it like so. It takes so much less time. And it's actually less mess. Well, most of the time. That one got pretty smashed. Now, I did not bring a small knife. Excuse me while I zip out of the picture. My baby paring knife and my handy little trash bowl. This trash bowl is now taking the ingredients from this and either putting it in the garbage soup bag in the freezer, because I'm going to can more broth, or into our composter. These look kind of grungy as far as carrots go, so I'm going to move those aside for the composter. What's going in this dish now will go in our garbage soup bag. And make sure you check out that video on YouTube as well. Now I'm just cutting off the ends that are a little brown. I want those to end up in our soup. Making sure I get out any bad spots, because some of the garlic does have a little bit of bad, and all the skin. I forgot. I have to chop onion. This is my Pampered Chef chopper. Love, love, love. One of my favorite tools. I say that about all my Pampered Chef tools, but love this one. It looks old. This is my brand new one I just got September of 2021. That tells you how well loved and used it is. It's already looks like the plastic is 10 years old. Scrape that out. There's my onion and garlic, all chopped and ready to go. All right, there we go. Now we're going to take these garlic scraps, put them in my bowl so they don't end up in my soup pot. And we're going to move the onion aside. Next, we're going to use another Pampered Chef tool. This is the crinkle cutter. Another one I love, love, love. I'm going to cut thin slices of carrot. Cute little crinkles in it. I'm getting better at using this faster, but I am nervous because I worry about my fingers. I have a bad habit of cutting my fingers in the kitchen. We use a lot of Band-Aids. All right, here we go. All that is done. Now, if we had some fresh basil already in the garden, I would be using some of that as well, but we don't as yet. I haven't even started any seeds, even though it's April something. Now, this is what I was talking about as far as the garbage from the yard. See that? This is, some people say crazy cress, some people say cress, some people call it wild mustard. I call it yummy. It's packed full of nutrients, it's packed full of good things, but it's no longer packed full of slugs. We have slugs in our yard, like to the max. I bring this in when I pick it. I pick through it, make sure there's no grass left in it, because sometimes I find clumps of it in the yard, so I'll pick the clump from the yard. I prefer that it grows where I tell it to, but it's a weed, technically. And it grows wherever it wants. It's actually going to become a part of our woodland garden that I'm adding to our prayer garden. I'm going to put a nice big row of this in so that it will constantly reseed itself. And I don't have to worry about doing it every year. And it'll just keep growing and growing and growing. I'm also going to be putting in that same area some ferns that are supposed to be edible when they're in that little curly phase. I've never eaten them, so we'll see how that goes. What else is going in there? Mint, oregano, a lemon balm, and one other herb, and I cannot remember which one it is. There's some that really like water, and this area where we're going to be putting it in needs some absorption. So we're going to let these things do their job, grow naturally, and prayerfully reseed themselves every year or continue to grow as far as the perennials go, like the mint and things like that. I'm hoping that with the mint and the lemon balm, which can get out of control, I can try and control them a little bit by wild harvesting everything that grows, so that we can use it for making teas, tinctures, whatever we need. So, all right, I'm going to set this aside. I'll be right back. I need to check the bagels. So before we chop the crazy cress, the yard greens, I'm going to have a sip of my cafe mocha if you want to know how I made this. And this size cup, at some of those national brands like Starbucks or whatnot, I don't even want to venture a guess on how much it would cost, but it didn't cost me but maybe 50 cents. So 50 cents is a whole lot better than whatever it would cost there. Plus I know that all the ingredients went in are ones I like. All right, so I don't want to chop this too small, but I definitely want it chopped, because I'm not one of those people who appreciates when you're in the middle of eating a bowl of soup, you take out a spoonful, and what happens? One of those green things all slimy and whatnot, slaps you wet on the chin, hot, it gives you a chin burn. So we're going to chop those. Before I do that, let's get started with the stove. I've put about 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil in the bottom of the pot. I don't want to add a lot of oil, so we're going to just add a little bit. We just want to cook the carrots, onions, and garlic until the onions and garlic are clear and fragrant. For this, I use my super long, ancient wooden spoon. Keeps my fingers away from the hot pot. Now, after those reach the phase of fragrant and clear, you want to go ahead and add in your greens and any of your other herbs if you're going to add additional herbs. I still actually don't know yet how it's going to go with adding the pre-made sauce, the gravy. So I'm going to wait to add herbs until later after it simmers a bit. Now, these fresh greens are probably not going to be enough for the whole pot. I do have a bag of spinach in the refrigerator, but I want to save that for some salads and things. So what I did is I knew there was a jar of, I haven't got a clue, in the pantry. This is something I dehydrated last year, and oh, it says March of 2020. Okay, so March of 2020, there is no mold. It is good. It's just simply mixed greens, it says. What I apparently did was I took greens and put them in the dehydrator, forgot to write myself a note of what it was. So this actually looks like it might be chopped kale from the grocery store that comes in one of those big cellophane bags. Because it does have a lot of really tough looking stems. So I'm going to chop this, put it in the soup, see how things go throughout the day. As it cooks, if by chance I need to add more greens, I need to get rid of these because I already have 2 jars of dehydrated spinach in the pantry that I know are good and have been dehydrated in the last 6 months or so. So I know those are good. So these need to get used. I will open these, and if they don't smell good, they won't be in the soup. If they smell good, they'll go in the soup. If they don't go in the soup, I have dried spinach as another option. So let's chop these guys up while the onions and garlic are getting fragrant. Now all I do is use the rocker motion of the crinkle cutter and go through these greens, making sure I press all the way through to the cutting board. If I see any pieces that are still a little large, I put them on top. It seems to help them chop a little better. So there we go. There's a long one that'll slap you on the chin. All right, there we go. Now, I smell the onions and the garlic. I'm hoping that means that they are ready for their green friends. Not quite. Turn it up, and I do need just a little tiny bit more olive oil. There, the higher heat did it really nicely. Pretty soon you're going to hear the bagel thing go off again, so I'm just giving you that heads up. Throw those yard greens in there. Pile up my dirty dishes. This is my bag of garbage soup ingredients. This is where I put all the vegetable scraps that are good enough to put into a soup that I would actually make into a soup, because this is going to become broth. I don't put anything in here that's moldy, disgusting, grody, slimy, grungy, whatnot. And as you can see, like for example, here's some celery stalks that were just limp and old, and we have a brand new one. So I went ahead, throw those in with my garlic and carrot scraps. And yes, a little piece of the yard greens ended up in there as well. One thing that is really important for you to do, learn what's edible in your neighborhood. If you're in a pinch and you need it, you'll be able to find all kinds of delicious things growing right around you. And if you can find out how they like to grow, you can even learn to grow them as purposeful weeds. All right, so now, oops, there's some greens on the floor. This is ready to go. Now this is going to be a vegetarian style meal because it's not going to have any meat in it at all. I have the lentils. I started early this morning, soaking and then simmering. So we are now going to open our jars of broth and check them. My mom always said the nose knows. Oh gosh, that smells yummy. Both smell wonderful. So I'm going to go ahead and add the broth to my pot. And then I'm going to turn up the temperature to about medium high. Bring it to a boil. And then after it comes to a boil, I will pour in the gravy. All right, now our soup is boiling. There's not a lot of water in here. So we're going to add this red gravy. Just packed full of fragrance and flavors. This was left over the other night from a batch of pizza that we made. And as I said, one container was from out of the freezer. I'm going to run grab some water. I will be right back. All right, I'm going to add a little bit more of our filtered water. And that should be enough. I've added about, what is that? A quart, maybe a little bit more than a quart. And that will, I'm going to bring it to a boil. And it's going to go back down to simmer. And it will be simmering all day. As it's getting ready to boil, one thing I like to do is taste test it to see where we are at with salt, because I tend not to add a lot of salt to products I don't have to add a lot of salt to. For example, the broth that I canned had salt in it because you need that as a preservative, and then I pressure canned it. However, I don't know that it's going to be enough for this whole pot of soup. Now is the time I will taste test for the salt. I will allow the herbs a little bit longer to blend through the sauce, and then we will let you know later. I will do some silent movies as it goes throughout the day and show you the different phases, such as adding the lentils and whatnot, and the dried greens if we go down that road. With the way our afternoon worked out, with customer Zoom calls and whatnot, I wasn't able to video any more of the soup. So I took some stills and let me share what took place. First thing I did, after simmering for several hours, was taste test everything, and everything was perfect. I didn't need to add any salt, pepper, or herbs of any kind, and that gravy worked perfectly as an addition instead of just a plain can of tomatoes. I did, however, smell test that jar of mixed greens I was going to add in. It was definitely well past time, so I dumped that out for the compost. Now, those recommendations for shelf life on home dehydrated foods really need to be taken more seriously in our pantry as well as your own, so make sure that you keep an eye on those and put your date on them. I will be watching that much more closely this year. Now, I also added some of that dried spinach that we had in the pantry instead. Those yard greens were not quite enough to give the soup the greens that I desired for that particular day. Now, the lentils, they were perfect. I had plenty of those, and when I opened up the pan, they were perfectly done. I did rinse them off a little bit, and then I just poured them into the pot. Now, we served the soup that night with some Parmesan cheese and some fresh homemade all-wheat bread. Of course, we ate it so quickly I forgot to take pictures. Instead, I'm going to show you a bowl of pasta fagioli that I made that same week as well. Both soups are very similar, and the pasta fagioli has, of course, pasta and white beans rather than the lentils. But they're both very similar in flavor. There have been times, though, when we've added pasta actually to the lentil soup and eaten it just as though we were making pasta fagioli. So, sprinkle it with Parmesan and enjoy some bread, or even some fresh-made focaccia. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video so far. For now, I'm going to add blessings and shalom.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Prepper Portion. This is Judith Garten. You know, some time ago, we bought a bag of broccoli crowns for a vegetable tray that we planned on making, and after cutting off all the florets, I had a lot of trunk left over. And as you can see, here they are. A few years ago, I started following my mom's advice to eat all those scraps and waste not, want not. So that's become the practice in our kitchen. Today we're going to cut off all the brown parts, chunk them up, blanch them, then freeze the tree trunks into bags for soups, casseroles, and side dishes. Now remember too, you can recycle your produce bag as a kitchen scrap catch-all as well. And that's what I'm planning to do today. The good pieces are going to drop into my Pampered Chef medium colander, while some of the pieces already being in the perfect sizes I can just plop in. Others are going to need to be cut. So I'm going to shift it into high-speed mode and show you what goes down. Now to clean up the scraps, what are you going to do? Well, if you compost, toss them into your bucket or pile, however you work that. But another idea is, and it was one I plan on using this spring, early enough so that it has chance to nourish our soil in our new garden plot. I'm going to puree them and pour them into the garden beds and help the gardens repair themselves. In our case, I'm doing this because I don't want certain wild animals coming around and sniffing around our yard. So I'm hoping this will deter any of that. And also our ground is somewhat frozen still. So we're going to throw some of what we're processing in the kitchen right now into the trash because I cannot get that poured out just yet. That's not my favorite choice, but it is the only choice that we might have at certain times of the year if the ground is frozen. But like I said, I want to try and reduce as much of our scrap waste as possible. Now, all these diced chunks will make at least one pot of soup or one casserole dish. They need to be blanched first, like I said. I already started a pot of boiling water before I started cutting up the vegetables, so I'm just going to drop these into that boiling water and allow them to blanch for about 3 minutes. Next, that broccoli will be dropped into ice water to fast chill and stop any cooking process. Then using a bag I made up earlier with my vacuum sealer, about 8.5 by 11, I'm going to plop those into that bag, vacuum seal it, and it will become part of our freezer food storage. See, placing the open bag into the catch tray inside the sealer unit, making sure to overlap the sealing strip with enough of the edge, I can lock the lid down, press the dry, fast vacuum, and then push the vacuum and seal button. Sorry about some of the fuzzy frames. Our counter vibrates a lot when I turn the vacuum sealer on. After sucking out every ounce of air it can, the vacuum sealer turns on the heat strip, alerts me with the red light, and once it turns off, it's ready to rock and roll. Now, I take a precaution. I always seal a second strip just to make sure absolutely no air is going to get in, and voila, all done.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Biblical Prepping. I'm Judith Garden, and this is the prepper portion. I have just a quick little video for you today to show you something that I do. I generally wear an apron when I'm cooking, but sometimes grease stains still get through onto my shirt, or I forget to put on the apron. And I had a friend ask me the other day, what is it I do to take care of any grease stains that are on my shirts? I actually have over here 3 shirts I've already done right here. I have my burgundy shirt, my autumn orange, as well as my gray. So what I do, and I'm hoping you can see on the shirt, let's telephoto in. Right here is a good spot where you can see these stains aren't really bad this time, which is really nice for me. They should be easy to get out. However, it's not real good for showing you. I've had some big grease stains that on the shirt are very, very large. Let me pan back out. I've had them as large as a silver dollar. So you're talking about 2-3 inches across on a shirt. And this is the method I use. It's so simple. Now, what I have here is an Old Spice jar. I made sure that I chose one with a sprinkle top. I just took some cheap, you know, the 50 cents a box or 60 cents a box baking soda from Dollar Tree, from Dollar General, Kroger's, all these, just the cheap kind. And I keep this container in the laundry room cabinet with my laundry soap, because those are the two things that you're going to need. Your standard laundry soap and just some kind of a container of baking soda. Oh, I also forgot an old toothbrush. So what you do is you just take the baking soda, you sprinkle it on the grease stain. As simple as that. You do want it on a flat surface. It makes it easier, and you brush it in to the stain. Just like so. You want to make sure to brush it in good into the fabric. What do you do if the fabric is a delicate fabric? Turn it inside out. It is better, it works much better if you do it with the shirt right side out. But if it's a delicate fabric and you're worried about damage to the fabric, you can turn it inside out. You just might need to do this treatment a couple of times. And then I rub it in, moving up because I have a whole trickle down of stain here. Do the same thing. Scrub it into the fabric. I rub it on top like this, and then I let it sit, just like this. You just let it sit like this for about 8 hours. And that's it. Come back in 8 hours and see what we do next. Now, my pink shirt hasn't been sitting as long as my gray one, so I'm just going to show you really quick on the gray one. When the baking soda soaks into the stain, you can generally see where it has been on the fabric. And this one, I actually started with just a tiny little spot of oil from frying, and it's actually this larger spot that has gotten into the fabric. Next, what I'm going to do is take my standard laundry soap. We use all free and clear. And I just drizzle it onto that a little bit. Scrub it in to the fabric as well. And then you just wash as normal. I'll do the same thing with each of these shirts as time is up for their spots to be soaking. And then I will wash them and show you how they turned out. Well, the laundry's finished and all of the shirts are clean except for this pink one. It's got a little bit of a spot still right here. It's light enough, I'll probably just wear it around the house one day, and then what I'll do is I will take and I will retreat that spot before I wash it the next time. But if you can look, all of the other spots are gone. Nothing else. Now for this one in particular, what I will probably do is I will take the baking soda, treat this side and the other side, because it may have actually pulled through the fabric onto the other side as well. And there you go. Simple, easy to do, just baking soda. And like I said, it's the really cheap variety. I just buy boxes of that and keep it in the cupboard for when I have grease stains. I hope this helps and might give you a way to solve that problem and save your shirts or your husband's. Because sometimes when my husband cooks, he splatters grease on his clothes too. And he does not wear an apron. So I often treat his as well. I hope this helps. Blessings and shalom.
Shalom, everyone. This is Janice Baca, and it is so great to have you guys on with me today. You know, every time I see that introduction video, I think of my dear friend Brian Williams, because some of those videos, that footage he has there is from his footage. He took the videos of the top of Mount Sinai, and it's just, it brings amazing memories and thoughts of being there at Mount Sinai. But hey, I digress. So I've got some exciting things going on this time here around, and I'm so excited to have Brian Williams coming on with me. And, guys, we've got something pretty amazing here at lambnetwork.tv. We've got a wonderful community of believers that are producers and do amazing shows. And I actually invite you guys to go and watch some of the other programs because they're pretty phenomenal. So, but hey, I want to say hello to a few people. Hey, looks like Animal Keeper 77, you finally caught us live. That's wonderful. And Janet, thank you for being on here. You guys are amazing. I appreciate your support. And hey, I've also got another announcement. My Discover the 144,000 and their song is free only today and tomorrow, the ebook on Kindle. So go to Amazon.com and purchase for free the Discover the 144,000 and their song. And I would be very grateful for your review on that book. And so you don't want to miss this opportunity. And so we got lots to share because Brian Williams and I, we're going to actually have some conversations about the 144,000. And I bet you guys haven't heard this before. So guess what? I'm going to bring Brian on. And so we're going to start chatting about that. So there he is, Brian, and my dear friend Brian. Welcome.
Well, hey, reporting for duty, willing and able. I am ready.
Well, I am glad you're here because this is you and I have been talking about this for a long time, right?
Yeah.
And so, Brian Williams, he and I work together at Project Truth Ministries, and you guys, I'll show you some of the links that you can go to get some information that's going to be on my PowerPoint. And so one of the things that we've really talked about before is the 144,000 and their song. Actually, I'm going to go a little bit more into their song because it's all into my book, right, Brian?
Yeah. Got to get that book. It's very, very well done. You really enjoy some of the amazing things in it. Yeah. So we'll tease you a little bit with it. Right.
We're going to tease you a little bit here because, we only have about 50 some odd minutes, right, Brian? And so you can't go into much detail with the short program, but I think you guys will really love it. So, So Brian, you're working with Project Truth Ministries with me, and we've gone way back. We've done a whole series on the Coach in Hebrew Revelation, the Scroll of Mysteries, and it took like a year and a half.
It took a while. It was a lot of study, a lot of videos, a little bit of editing. We didn't go crazy with the editing,
No,
but we put out. It took a while, and I'm telling you, people, you need to go watch the series that we did on Revelation, the Coach-in Hebrew Revelation. It's amazing. It's crazy good. There's all kinds of big discoveries. And I'll tell you, just like everything that we do at Project Truth Ministries, we are basically from a high level teaching you text criticism and how to investigate, research, and sort through things from a very intellectual high level. And a lot of people don't have skills like that. A lot of people have never been introduced to something like that. And so we're doing it, and we're trying to give it to you because we love you and we want the truth to spread.
We do want the truth to spread. Janet, I agree with you. This is something that I have studied for years. So let me tell you what's going on. My book was released on the 7th, right? The December 7th date. 6 days later, I was contacted by the director of Oprah's book club. Now, you may have some good ideas and bad ideas. I don't know. But what I know is this, is that I must be onto something. That's what my bottom line is, though I thought about it and considered, how does she even find my book after being released only 6 days? Couldn't tell you. But what I do know is that I think that this is extremely important information. What do you think about that, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. And God can use all kinds of people. Doesn't matter who they are. He can
That's
use
right.
all kinds of people to spread his message and get his word out around the world. That's just
That's right.
how amazing our Creator is.
That's right. And it's what's really important is, if you don't mind, writing the reviews for my book, and so that it does get circulated more so, and so that the message can get out to all of the 144,000 and all of the believers who maybe have been a little bit confused about this.
Yeah. And we get questions all the time, Janice, about how can we help you? How can we join the fight? How can we support you? Well, you can share all of our stuff. Share it, send
Absolutely.
it out, spread the word, tell people about what we're working on. That's the best way and the
Absolutely.
easiest way. Hey, text it to 5 people. How about that?
There you go. And then tell them to text it to 5 people. I don't know
Yeah.
what that's called, but a chain something or another.
That's called the truth spreading.
This is okay.
There you
We'll
go.
go with that. The truth spreading, Brian.
Yeah.
So, hey, Brian, I'm going to show some slides because you and
Yeah.
I did a video, and I want people to see what we've done so that they can recognize it and go back and watch it. So, there we go. Let me actually advance my slide. So, looky there, you guys. Brian and I, when was this? Last week, Brian? Last week we did a video on this.
Yes, and this video was a long time coming. We actually have been talking about this for well over a year, about putting out this information on these tablets, these golden and lead tablets that you and I, Janice, had come across in Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
And we were part of a team to analyze them. We were basically the first people to actually analyze them and attempt to translate, and probably the only group so far, because those tablets kind of have disappeared.
Yes.
So far, they haven't resurfaced in public. So we
Yes.
got exclusive photos and we got exclusive story about being at
Yes.
Ground Zero.
I'm telling you, you guys, you do not want to miss this video. Go back to Project Truth Ministries YouTube channel and watch that video, because we reveal a great deal of information. Here's some of our information where you can go look at on my personal YouTube channel, on the Project Truth Ministries YouTube channel, as well as our website at projecttruthministries.org. And so, but you know what, Brian, I need to address this. Somebody says, where do we find your book? So you want to go to Amazon.com, and you can look under my name, or you can look under Janice F. Baca, or you can do the research on Discover the 144,000 and their song, and you can see that. Make sure it's me as the author. Then choose the ebook or the Kindle book. You can buy it for free. It'll just do the one-click buy for free, and then you'll have that available to read, and then you can write a review, and you would be a verified purchaser, and your ranking and review hits higher. So, but if you guys have any problems, you can contact me as well. But you only have today and tomorrow to get that ebook. So, hey, Brian, let's go ahead and look a bit further. There's the book cover, you guys. I would show you the book, but you know what? You guys get the books faster than I do. That's the funny thing. When an author publishes books, they don't get their books for weeks. And yet I have people saying, you know what, Janice, I just got your book. I got your book. I got your book. And I'm like, well, I wish I had my own book. It's sad, but it's true.
And there's nothing like a good book with a nice smell in your hands that you can write on and make notes. So,
that's what I do.
Definitely get that.
I do. I highlight, I dog ear my corners. I'm hard on my books. So yeah, it's a wonderful thing. So I love books. So Brian, we're going to have some conversation about in Revelation 7:14. We want to know, who are these people that are the 144,000? Now, I don't know. Should we just dive into this?
Oh yes, there's been a lot of people throughout history who have, come up with all kinds of theories, but we actually have some so basically like a new revelation
Yeah.
based on the grammar and text of the
Yeah.
Hebrew revelation that was found at in Cochin, India.
Yep.
It's housed in the Cambridge Library in London. So, we got something even more grander than all these crazy doctrines that have popped up throughout the years. By the way, Janice, may I share with our audience
Please.
just a brief summary of some of these major big
Yeah, and talk a little bit more
doctrinal
about
beliefs?
why the Cochin revelation is so important. So yeah, please go ahead and get into that.
So let me just read through some of these doctrinal beliefs that different denominations. These are not all of them, because the list would be extremely long if I were to read out
Right.
all of them. But the typical evangelical dispensational belief, they believe in a literal versus symbolic. They believe in a literal and of who these 144,000 are, and that they believe is literal Jews from 12 tribes. Now we know, our audience is very smart. Jews, we're talking about the Israelites. Israel was made up more than just Jews or the tribe
That's
of
right.
Judah. So yeah, I digress on that. There's the symbolic church view. They believe everything's symbolic, and that the entire body of believers, anybody who's
Yes.
believing that there are 144,000, that doesn't make too much sense. If that's the case, that's a small number, right?
Yes.
Jehovah's Witnesses out there, they believe in
Yep.
a literal, and they
And they
believe
believe it's only them, right?
yeah, they believe it's only
Okay.
from their denomination, and that they are anointed Christians within the Jehovah's Witness that are going to rule in heaven. And there's some question on whether or not, like, the last few that are in charge of their church are the last few left, and everybody else is not going to make it. Then there's then there's the Seventh-day Adventists. They believe in a mixed, either symbolic or literal. And there's this faith remnant at the end times. So it's a small group of just faithful people. And then there's the Catholic or mainline Protestant, that they believe it as symbolic being faithful people of God is the 144,000.
And they're only Catholic then to them, right?
What?
I can only
Catholic
assume
or
so.
mainline Protestant. I mean, they're like, oh, just us,
Yeah.
our denomination. But that's
Yeah.
not what the text says. The text does not say that.
No,
People are
and
feeding in what they want.
yeah, but Brian, the reason why the Cochin Hebrew Revelation, the Scroll of Mysteries, is so essential is that we know it was written in Hebrew, right?
Mhm.
So
Yep.
we know it was written in Hebrew. There's a lot of markers that actually tells us that. Go ahead.
Right. It's written in Hebrew,
Yep.
and all the writers were Hebrew. They were Hebrew writers, of the New
Yeah.
Testament, and they spoke Hebrew. They lived in a Hebrew nation. Their religious text was Hebrew, and we can see, going to the synagogue, they would have been speaking and reading in Hebrew.
Yes.
So, this whole business of, the New Testament is Greek. Well, culturally and historically, that doesn't make sense. Then secondarily, when you start to analyze the text, you start to see things come out of the text that
Yes.
points to it being a Hebrew original. And
Yes.
won't get into the technicals of that, because that takes a while. But trust me, there's a lot of Hebrew markers,
Yes.
especially in the one from Cochin, India, that me and Janice has
Yes.
studied.
Yes. And not only that, we actually did a whole series of all of the Cochin Revelation, the Scroll of Mysteries. Now, we bring that up because this is actually, there's a number of miraculous things that happen to even draw me to the Scroll of Mysteries and to even connect me to different things, such as the Song of the Sea, such as even finding Ezekiel 9. And there was, where the demons, devils, and deities came from and the connections there. All these miracles have happened through the Scroll of Mysteries. I need to address something real quick. Eddie, he's having some trouble downloading the book on Amazon. Make sure you've chosen the Kindle version, the ebook version, and then you can click buy. And of course, it'll be $0.00. But no one's had any problems at this point. So just make sure you're clicking on the right book and then purchase at $0. So, but hey, Brian, I want to continue on and actually show this because we, this is where, the Father has shown me some things. I'm trying to add it to the stage. There we go. The Father showed me some things, a lot of things through the Cochin manuscript. And it's really been so exciting because he's shown you some things, me some things, and even our viewers some things, right? And so there's a lot of connections. Now, it's not a perfect manuscript, but it's better than the Greek. I can tell you that much. And it's better than the Aramaic. So we know that the Crawford Aramaic and the, what was the other, Murdoch Aramaic, both of those are translations from the Greek. But the Cochin, the Scroll of Mysteries is not a translation from the Greek. Solid, not a translation.
Yeah, and anytime you have text variants, the Cochin completely just stands alone. And in fact, the sentences are more clearer and more precise and are more accurate to what we see culturally and also compared to the New Testament or Old Testament.
That's right.
We'll kind of get into that tonight.
So, and I'm glad you brought that up because we're going to be reading through some of the verses from the Scroll of Mysteries and some of the verses that we've actually found some connection to, which was the first aha moment. Well, actually, there was several at the same time aha moments, and this is one of
I tell you what, our brains got blown so much through that study. You could see like our veins popping out in our recording is like, man, just another day at the office. My brain got blown again from what's in the text.
That's exactly right. Now, I have to tell you, for this one, I actually cried. I was in I had so much joy in my heart because I started finding the validating things, not only of who the 144,000 are, but also their song. I know I haven't hit hard on the song yet, but the song, I go into detail in the book and the restructuring of the song. And I know we can't really touch that tonight. I'm going to try to get that, into this presentation, but if not, it is most certainly in the book. So, but Brian, I'm going to go ahead and let me see if I can get this bigger for us. I'm going to read this out of the Scroll of Mysteries, and hopefully you guys can follow along. This is from Revelation 7, verses 2 through 8. And this is out of the Scroll of Mysteries. Then after this, I saw 4 messengers standing upon the 4 corners of the earth, gripping the 4 winds of the earth in their hands, so that the wind would not be upon the earth, nor upon the waters, nor on any tree. And I saw another messenger who came from the east of the sun. With him was a seal of the living and the existing El. He cried out with a great voice to the 4 messengers who were permitted to damage the earth and the sea. He said, "Don't damage the earth, nor the sea, nor even a tree, until I give a mark upon the foreheads of the servants of Jehovah." Then I heard the number that was sealed. 144,000 were sealed of the clans of the children of Israel. From the tribe of Judah were 12,000. From the tribe of Reuben were 12,000. From the tribe of Gad were 12,000. From the tribe of Asher, 12,000. From the tribe of Naphtali were 12,000. From the tribe of Manasseh were 12,000. From the tribe of Simeon was 12,000. From the tribe of Levi were 12,000. From the tribe of Issachar were 12,000. From the tribe of Zebulun were 12,000. From the tribe of Joseph were 12,000. From the tribe of Benjamin were 12,000. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before, when you're looking through this, I want to see, is this really just men, right? That's the question that's been assumed. Honestly, it's been assumed throughout all of these generations. It's always been assumed that it's only men. Mm-hmm. Here's the problem I have. people that know the Hebrew grammar, which there's not a lot that know the Hebrew grammar, right? Because the Hebrew grammar is extremely essential. You guys would be very, very surprised as to what is actually men or what is actually people. And it can still be like masculine plural, written out masculine plural, but I may be talking about a group of people. So now we've come across this conundrum, and we'll say, what is that? I mean, go ahead, Brian.
And let me say, and a lot of people will be lazy in their reading, especially for men when they read through, especially like a English translation, and they see men over and over. Well, they're only thinking men, or mankind, or human, masculine men,
right?
But in a lot of places, the English will not put any kind of identifier to let you know that this is mankind. This is all of humanity. It's not just the men or males in a lot of cases. And we don't have that obviousness in the grammar like the Hebrew does. The Hebrew will really show. You can look at the words around it. You can look at the context, and it'll let you know. And that's just the way the Hebrew is built. When you're talking about, respect and stuff, you just address it as men, like saying, hey guys, yes, there's ladies in here. So that's kind of what we're talking about here.
That's exactly what we're talking about. It's kind of like saying the hey guys. And so now when they're doing a translation, if it is more literal translation, they may just put men. And then people automatically assume it's just men. But that's not true according to the Hebrew grammar. We have to look to see, is this what we call masculine plural, or is it common plural? And so now we're getting into the nitty gritty of the grammar. So let me show my slide again so we can look at this. Now, you definitely and absolutely want to translate according to the context. Now, out of everything that I have just read to you, I see nothing that tells me that this is men only. These are men dressed up for war. These are Levite men that are doing whatever. I'm not seeing anything like that tells me these are men only. So the only word that I could find is the word servants of Yehovah, Avdei Yehovah. Now, when you look up servants of Yehovah, we can see in Joel 2:29, there are male and female servants.
Yeah.
There's not just male servants, there are male and female servants. So this clearly is a a common plural noun, that these are male and female servants. It can be men, and it can be men and women.
Well, let me just say this. Can everyone serve God? How about children? Can children serve God? God can use everybody.
That's exactly right. And I don't see anything that tells me it's not children either, Brian.
Yeah.
There's nothing in this text right here that actually is glaring, whether it's in Hebrew or in English, nothing that tells me that this is men only. So we look further, because we have in Revelation 14 a continuation of the description of the 144,000. Now we come to the bottom of this and we say, Joel 2:29, definitely there are male and female servants. So we're not conclusively saying now it's either male and female. So now let's just go ahead and investigate further. Now we're comparing a few verses that is in Revelation 14:3 and then in 14:4. And then, of course, 14:5. I'm going to read those so that we can talk about that a little bit more. It looks like StreamYard kind of makes my verses a little bit scrawny, but it's okay. They were singing the renewed song before the throne, the four living creatures, and the elders. No one was able to learn this song but the 144,000 that he redeemed from the ground. Now, guys, I'm going to touch on that in a little while, but
yes, that's a loaded one right there.
That's a loaded one, right? So wait a minute. All right, let's go to the next one. These are those who did not sin with women and are like virgins, ket betulot, who go after the Lamb and purchase for the firstborn of Yehovah and the Lamb. In their spirit is no deceit, for they are blameless before the throne of Yehovah. Now, the reason why I have these letters, most of these letters and these words in gold, is because, again, even though these are pronouns that are masculine plural, they can also be common plural. The they, meaning all of them and all of they, those, that can be common plural. We yet still have not defined these are men only. It can be men, women, and children. At this point, I don't see anything that tells me anything differently.
Yeah. Now let's just stop real quick, because people, they might not be used to the term common plural.
Okay.
You have your masculine, you have your singular. So when it's talking
masculine,
about like
singular,
one tree in a masculine form, you have masculine
feminine,
plural,
and
you have multiple, and then you can have feminine singular and feminine plural.
That's exactly right.
But then you can also have what's called common plural.
Yes, exactly. And common singular.
Yeah.
So, and so that you get used to these terms. And I sometimes I forget. I'm glad you remind me of that, because sometimes I forget that not everybody understands those terms. So it isn't always masculine plural. So if you see the Scroll of Mysteries or anything else like the Coach in Matthew that we're working on, you may see a CP or CS or something like that. That would be common plural or common singular, meaning that it can be male or female. And so that's what we're looking at, male and female of pretty much all ages. So when you see that, that's what we're looking at, right?
So the words are even more descriptive than their meaning.
That's exactly right.
So when people are like, oh, the Hebrew, it could be anything. It doesn't have the Nikud, blah, blah, blah. Actually, like, you can get even deeper with the Hebrew than you can from the Greek or English, because Greek and English are very flat, very, very literal. Like, there's not much depth to it, but there's quality and poetry and you can get like 5 different meanings all in the same essence in the Hebrew.
And that's the reason why we do the interlinear tables, Brian. And you and I have had many discussions about this, that when you get into Revelation 22, adding to or taking away from the words of the prophecy is a dreadful thing to even consider. So that's why we have the interlinear tables. That's why you see it in Hebrew. You see the transliteration.
I'm gonna show all my work, people. I'm showing all my work. I don't want y'all. I don't want to be like standing on Judgment Day and be like, why did you change this to what's not there?
And even if there's a case where there was, I think it was a noun being used as a verb, you're going to see a footnote. This person, the author used this noun as a verb. I don't care how basic it seems. We are going to show our work, which is what everybody should be doing.
And we even showed crossouts, things that were crossed out. The scribe was like, I wrote this, but it's probably not this, and crossed it out. We showed that too. We went to that kind of like revealing of what was actually in the text. We even show images of the Hebrew. Text.
And then we got, and bearing that in mind, Cambridge University, I even had permission from them, and they stay in touch with me. They are thrilled that this information is getting out and for free. So, you can go to projecttruthministries.org and you can download your own copy. You can review it yourself. We can go to my academia account. It's on there as well. We show our work and we hand it out for free because it's the word of God, right?
Right.
So let me push it on. Okay. So now we're looking at, we still don't have that it's not men only or men and women, right? But I do want to touch on this virgins thing and the women.
Yes.
So go ahead, Brian.
Well, I just want to say something about when you see we can see this as very Hebraic, right? So in the Greek, if something's like that you try to compare it exactly, but that's not the way the Hebrew works. It's not an exact comparison. For example, when God refers to Israel as a lion, are they literally a lion?
Yes.
No, they're not literally. Not everybody is lions and with claws, and that's not. It's the essence of. They're very aggressive in their attack, and they're cat-like in their viciousness. Or like Israel is a prostitute. They went after being harlot. Played the harlot. They're not literally a prostitute.
Right.
They cheated on God, is what the message is. So there is this quality to it. So when it's like something. It's not a match for match. It's a quality of it.
That's right. That's right. Oh, look, Stephanie Gonzalez. She says she's got hers. Yay. Well, thank you. Thank you. And please let us have, give us a good review. Let us know what you think.
Yeah.
So guys, look at the image to your right. Do you see there's a gold box around that letter that's to the right, to the far right. That is a Hebrew letter, Kaf. That one letter changes everything. That right there is the word that means like or as. And so they're not virgins, but nevertheless, this, even if we didn't have that, this is a metaphor. This is an imagery that they are like virgins. They're not worshiping idols. They're not worshiping other gods. They are like virgins because they have not worshiped other gods. So that they're like virgins.
And that will be a big tie-in for what we'll go look at in the Old Testament. That's completely connected to this verse and what we discovered in the coaching.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So then, of course, they did not sin with women. Now that literally could be translated. These are those that did not sin with the women, like whoredom.
Like prostitutes or temple prostitutes, like pagan temple.
Or just
because Israel was always falling in and out.
It would still be more like idolatry and worship of other gods and all that too. So a little bit of all that. But here we're saying, okay, we still have a potential that is men, women, and even children. I don't see anything that tells me different. What about you, Brian?
Nope, I don't see it.
Okay. So now we've come to the conclusion. These are 144,000. At this point in time, we see men, women, and possibly even children. They are servants of, actually, we know we do have it conclusive because they're servants of Jehovah. And we know that the servants of Jehovah, there are those that are in Joel 2:29. So they're like virgins. And guess what? They sing. And I can't get into that singing today, but that singing is a miracle singing, you guys. Oh my gosh. It's a miracle singing. God. So, but okay. Now, there is one more place, Brian, where there were people who were sealed. Now, wouldn't it be a pretty awesome thing if we could connect the scroll of mysteries to the Ezekiel chapter 9 and actually show this connection? Let's look. Let's see.
It would be and is, right?
I think so. Okay, so I go back and I look at this and I say, you know what? Let's go look at who these folks are in Ezekiel 9. So I'm going to read this to you guys. Then he called out in my hearing with a loud voice, saying, let those who have charge over the city draw near, each with his deadly weapon in his hand. And suddenly 6 men came from the direction of the upper gate, which faces north, each with his battle axe in hand. One man among them was clothed in linen and had a writer's inkhorn at his side. They went in and stood beside the slaughter place. Now the glory of Elohim of Israel had gone up from the cherub where it had been to the threshing floor of the temple. And he called to the man clothed with linen, who had the writer's inkhorn at his side. And Jehovah said to him, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and put a mark upon the foreheads of the men who sigh and cry over all the abominations that are done within it. To the others, he said in my hearing, go after him through the city and kill. Do not let your eyes spare, nor have any pity. Utterly slay old and young men, maidens, and little children and women, but do not come near anyone on whom there is a mark, and begin at my sanctuary. So they began with the elders who were before the temple. Then he said to them, defile the temple and fill the courts with the slain. Go out. And they went out and killed in the city. Now, I want to talk about this. Let me see if I can show our faces here, Brian. So I want to talk about, we've got to figure out the author, right? We want to know a little bit more about Ezekiel and how he writes. So the big question of the day, remember when I told you guys earlier that like the word men or anashim in Hebrew, it can be masculine plural or common plural. the question today here in Ezekiel 9 is, well, is it masculine plural or is it common plural? So if he's saying go and just go seal the men and only the men and their foreheads, or is he actually making a more global statement?
Yeah.
Well, the suggestion I have is let's compare Ezekiel to Ezekiel. Because if Ezekiel would use any pronoun globally, like a common singular or common plural, then I would say he probably would do that here, make it more a common noun, right?
Mhm.
So I have these words to go after a him. Him is who in Hebrew, and it is masculine singular. Now, Brian, do you think that Ezekiel would call me a him?
No, and
You
even
don't think
the
so?
no.
Would he?
Oh, you mean in group setting, right?
Well,
Yeah.
in a well, would he? I
Yeah.
mean, he
Well,
might.
let's think about this. Let's think about this logistically. If he only marked the men in Jerusalem
Yeah.
and they went through with the battle axe killing everybody, then
Uh-huh.
only men would survive, and that would be very unfortunate to the women and children
It
who
would.
are even a part of that man's family. So that
Yes.
wouldn't make much sense. Actually, what would make sense is that he would be talking about all the ones who refuse to fall to the abominations.
Right. So let's look at this the second paragraph. Now, there were women in this group because clearly he identifies young men, maidens, and little children and
Right.
women, those that are going to be slayed. But notice how he says, go after him.
Hmm.
And he's referring to young men, maidens, and little children and women.
Yeah.
So now we've got a flavor. We've got Ezekiel using a masculine singular noun to go after all of these age groups.
All encompassing, because the context says that
Yes,
it's all
men and women
encompassing.
and children,
Right.
right? So now we see he can use him to be young men, maidens, little
Yeah.
children, and women. So now there's for the him, that's all groups. Now we've got anashim for men. That is now considered common plural. It's mankind.
Mhm.
It is
Makes
not.
sense.
Yeah, it does,
Makes
doesn't it?
sense.
But here's where it gets really exciting. Let's just keep going.
Mhm.
First of all, there are the sealed ones in Ezekiel 9 are men, women, and even children. They're the ones that are sighing and crying over the abominations in Jerusalem. Now, the question I have is, has this happened yet? Well, let's see.
Well, I'll say the theory out there, right? Because we want to know the different theories just for sake of information. The theory is that it was fulfilled in when Babylon took Israel, but we have no record of that actually happening. That somebody went through, marked people, and then only a small number who didn't fall to abominations or paganism.
Right.
So we don't actually have any history to support that theory, just the fact
Nope.
that Jerusalem fell.
No. And the matter of fact, in Ezekiel 9, verse 9, it says that the punishment is coming upon both Israel and Judah. But
Mhm.
the northern kingdom of Israel had fallen more than a century before Ezekiel even wrote this prophecy. So this prophecy is for a future generation.
That's pretty
Wow.
big.
That's
pretty big.
mind-blowing, right?
Yeah. It's still on the table.
It is still on the table, guys. This
Yeah.
has not happened. So that looks like the 144,000 will be the ones who will be in Jerusalem at the time of the sealing. And of course, Yeshua is the one that is coming dressed in linen. And Brian, when the high priest is dressed in linen, guess what? It's at the Feast of Atonement, the holiest day of the year.
Yeah. I pull out some little things here and there. The scribe, that you see in Ezekiel, dressed in linen. Let's back up. It's 6, warrior men or battle men. 6 is the number of man, but it's also connected to the destroyer and Satan and the mark of the beast, 666. This is death. They are coming to kill and destroy. Destruction is there, and that is their whole goal.
Wow.
And it's God that is blocking them. Well, ooh, that sounds like ancient Egypt, right?
Yeah.
With the Passover, same thing. You gotta be marked. You're either marked for God or you're marked as the enemy of God, and you don't want to be that.
No, you
Trust
don't.
me.
But you know what? Let's see. Is this the next slide? I don't know if this is the one that's me talking about
Yep.
that. We're going to do some comparison between the Revelation 7:4 and Ezekiel 9:4. Okay. And this is a mark. So I'm glad you brought up. Boy,
Yeah.
you're just right on time, Brian. Okay, so Revelation 7 verse 3. I'm going to remind you again what it says. And he said, don't damage the earth, nor the sea, nor even a tree, until I give a mark upon the foreheads of the servants of Jehovah. Those words, my friends, in Hebrew is Tav al Mitzchot. Okay? Tav al Mitzchot. Now I'm going to look at Ezekiel 9 verse 4, and it says, and Jehovah said to him, go out through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and put a mark on the foreheads. That's Ezekiel 9, verse 4. Guess what, guys? Tav al Mitzchot. Why is this important to you guys? Let me explain why this is so important. Tav al Mitzchot now actually connects the Scroll of Mysteries, Cochin Hebrew Revelation, to Ezekiel 9. There is literally no other Hebrew manuscript that has that kind of connection. That is one of the more explosive findings to date. Well, we got so many, honestly. I mean, I could go on and on about all the different findings. We wouldn't stop, right? I'd be in all kinds of trouble. We'd go until midnight.
We have a mountain of big discoveries.
We do.
In our series. Go check it out on our YouTube channel. But
we do. So anyway, so the Tav al Mitzchot now is actually quoting out of Ezekiel 9, right?
Same phrase.
But here's where it gets really phenomenal. That when you see the Tav, now the Tav does mean mark or sign. I'm not saying it doesn't mean that, but I found it really interesting that throughout time, Tav not only does mean mark and sign, it also has done a grammatical shift to also mean music sign or music note. And so it seems to hint that when they're sealed, that some kind of frequency or music is given to them when they get the Tav al Mitzchot, the Tav upon their forehead mark. And that is just the most wonderful thing to ever imagine, right?
And how amazing of a connection that is, because we know that the 144,000 are singers. They're going to be singing and worshiping to the Lamb in the end. And I remember, when I came to know the truth and I was reading about them, and I would come across people all the time that would be like, no, the 144,000, they're like Marines and they're going in and they're doing, they're fighting or they're like leading people or they're doing all this other stuff. And I'm like, wait, I just read that they're singing. They are singing. And
but it's a warfare song, right? I think it's a warfare song myself. I love the war dance songs kind of stuff.
Absolutely. It's like the ultimate singers. And they're marked for that. That is their task, is to be the worshipers.
They are the worshipers. But you know what's really phenomenal? Remember, Brian, when we found that when those who worship the dragon and the beast, they don't get a Tav. There's something else in Hebrew. It says Siman. The Siman that they get. Now, granted, guys, it still means mark or sign. Sure. If I were to simply translate that from Hebrew into English, you wouldn't have a clue the differences.
Yeah. And it's loaded. It's loaded.
It is.
Can I say what it is?
Go ahead.
Omen. It's an omen. It is bad. It comes with a curse. You take the mark of the beast, you're cursed.
That's right.
Get out of it.
And here's the deal. So what Brian's referring to is the first time, this is a Mishnaic word, Siman. This Mishnaic word, now let me just go back and explain Hebrew. So the Hebrew is not Hebrew. Hebrew is Hebrews. There's ancient or archaic Hebrew, there's First Temple Hebrew, Second Temple Hebrew, late Second Temple Hebrew, and modern Hebrew. And they're all different, very different. That's the reason why we do a grammar analysis, that we look for the grammatical shift. So now late Second Temple Hebrew is either called New Hebrew or Rabbinic Hebrew. Now, a subset of that Rabbinic Hebrew exists in the Mishnah, which is a Jewish writing that was published early on, I think about 100 CE. And when you see it existing and used in the Mishnah, we call that Mishnaic Hebrew. So the Siman, it was first found in the Mishnah, and it was translated, as Brian said, omen. Oh my gosh. So the thing is that it seems to be, not only does it mean a mark, but there seems to be an omen that comes with that mark. That's crazy talk.
Yes. And, who to think, if you sign on with evil, that, there's baggage that comes with it. There's a consequence that comes with it.
That's
Of
right.
course. Of course. And
Absolutely.
it reminds me of Cain. Cain, when he killed Abel, he was
Yes.
marked, but I mean, he was also cursed. Everywhere he went, everybody knew, like, get away from this guy. This guy's bad news.
I think somebody brought that up. Was it the same thing? I'd have to look to see what Cain was marked with. I don't know. I'll look, have to look at the Hebrew, but Siman absolutely is, if you want to be one of the 144,000, you want to get the Tav, which is the mark of the sign. That is a good thing that possibly may come with music or frequency. You don't want the Siman, so don't go getting anything in your right hand, your forehead, and oh, this is convenient. I can just whip my hand over there and make a purchase. Nope, not a smart thing to do. So
Yeah, you're gonna have to face the creator afterwards.
yeah, absolutely.
Not gonna work out for you.
It's a dreadful
You don't really have a
thing.
choice. Really, if you're a believer, you
Yep.
don't have a choice. Just
Yep.
don't take anything.
Yep.
Don't take a mark. Something that might be on the fence and you're not sure about. Just don't do it. Don't do
Right.
it. Why risk it, right?
No, don't ever risk it.
Yeah.
So let's continue on, right? We're going to continue on. So now we got the Tav meets Chot, and I put the image there on the right where you can see it in the Scroll of Mysteries. And so let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So here's our summary between the two. At this point in time, Brian, we know that the 144,000 are men, women, and possibly even children. They're going to be in Jerusalem when they're sealed. They are servants of Jehovah, such as in Joel 2:29, and they are like virgins. They sigh and cry over the abominations in Jerusalem, and they are redeemed from the ground. Oh my gosh, Brian, we got to talk about the redeemed from the ground kind of thing.
Yes.
So
Can
go
I say
ahead.
something real
Please.
quick before we move on?
Yeah.
So, I love numbers. I love counting when I see repetition, and
Yes.
biblical numbers have
Yes.
meaning. And so we have
Yes.
12,000 of each tribe. That's 12 and 12. 12 has a very
Mhm.
distinct meaning, and we know the 12 disciples also,
That's right.
12 tribes of Israel. But 12 relates to divine government, God's authority, perfection, and completeness. So we're talking God's perfect plan in its completeness when we're talking about 12,000, 12 times,
Yes.
144,000. That's what that number really means, is
Amen.
perfect completeness from God.
Amen. Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense to me, Brian. So, redeemed from the ground. Now, in the Greek, it says redeemed from the earth. In the Scroll of Mysteries, they use a word that is ha'adamah. Ha'adamah is ground. It can be translated to earth, but like an earthly ground. So it seems to me that either all or part are redeemed from the past, right? They're raised from the dead. Now, I know there's a verse that says all are to die, but we have actually some people in the scriptures that some didn't die, such as
Well,
Elijah.
let me just say that verse you're talking about, all men are appointed to die.
That's it.
But think about this. Okay. The point of that verse is that they're appointed. Why are they appointed to die?
Ah,
Because of sin. If you
yes.
have sinned, you have been appointed to die.
Ooh,
And it
Brian.
takes Yeshua to do away with your appointment with death. That's what that verse is
awesome.
about.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So my theory is that some will be transformed that are alive that day during that time frame. Some will be raised from the dead from the past, and that's what I think is going to happen. We'll see. We'll see. But that's something that I had considered, is that I think that some are coming from the past.
Right. Based on the words being used, the
Yes.
door is opened for like what we were suspecting. This is a future. This could be a future event still
Yes.
on the table.
Yes.
And the people that are redeemed, they're the ones coming up that the grammar is opened the door that they're not necessarily dead.
That's
And
right.
so it could be 144,000 of people that are alive today.
That's
Or
right.
it could be, a span of
Throughout
some
the
are
generations.
living, some are
Mhm.
dead, all that is still on the table.
That's
and
right.
Part of this. Yeah.
And it's something to
That's-
consider. That's the reason why you and I have these discussions, because we've got to break out of the traditional teachings and say, let's consider our options.
Yeah.
And, at this point, those are options on the table. And so, take it into prayer, ask the Father to show you. And then surely when that time comes, we're going to find out, right? So it doesn't matter what you and I think. When that day happens, it's going to say, aha, so there it is. There, these people.
Yeah. And let's be honest, we're just searching
Yes.
through the text, just trying to find the truth, whatever it may be. And, maybe we could be off, but, at least we're approaching this with fresh eyes and honest
right.
searching heart. And, it's going to happen the way it's going to happen.
That's right.
Whether we're viewing it one way or another, it's going to happen.
It is going to
And-
happen, right?
And we're just
So-
saying, hey, we found some things that point a little clearer and
Yes.
might be the actual way to read that.
That's right. So let's go ahead and push on, because we have about 8 minutes and I want to be able to share all this if I can. So, all right. What is their song, Brian? Oh my gosh.
Oh.
What is their song?
They have the Song of Songs.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have included in my book a study done by Dr. Marilyn Mansfield. And one of her proposals is that in Exodus 38, verse 8 and 1 Samuel 2:22, the Hazavaot is that's used for the women that are ministering at the at the tabernacle. And what we really realize is Zavah. Now we hear the word Yehovah Zavaot, we hear that it's armies, but there has been a lot of intentional mistranslations of that word when it came to the women at the tabernacle at the entrance of the tent. And her argument has been that Zavah has been used two different places for two different situations. One, it was used for army, and two, it was used for the Levite priesthood. And so her argument, which I'm leaning towards, is that these were women that were fulfilling some role in the priesthood. They were ministering at the entrance of the tent because it's Zavah. Now, her argument is they're not in warfare. So we know that word Zavaot is not, they're not warring. They're not with their swords in their hand. They're not
Right.
fighting people. And they're not in prayer either. Because that's a different word.
It's not locked into one specific thing. We could also say host. Sometimes host is used.
Host is
as
used for
well.
armies as well. Exactly. So in this case, they're not army. It doesn't appear that the women at the entrance are
They're
army.
at the temple, so that would make sense.
So what would be the other option would be that they were serving in the role of a priesthood. So whatever that role is, they were serving at the entrance tent. So I include tons of information from her study in my book about the women at the entrance of the tent. Guys, it's time we break out of the doctrine and consider the option that perhaps our translators haven't been so honest with us. We have to do the digging into the Hebrew. We've got to do our own search, and we got to break out of some of this, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, Janice, you and I have conversations all the time
All the time.
about little nuggets of bad translating that we
Bad.
find are like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they did that. Look at that. That is not
Yeah.
the word. Why would the English do that? And it's just
Yeah.
something you have to deal with, and you have to put little footnotes, everybody.
Yeah.
You know, when you find these, you know, put a little footnote and say the Hebrew word is this and it means this.
That's right. Because Zavaot, it is actually related to warfare, army, or it's related to the priesthood. That's the only two situations where it was used. That's why Yehovah is called Yehovah Zavaot. So, hey, let's continue. We got a few more minutes. I want to finish if we can. So then a miracle happened, and I guess I better show our faces again, because a miracle happened that when I've been going to the Israel Institute of Biblical Studies, and I don't foresee myself quitting anytime soon. I've been in there for 7 or 8 years at this point. I've lost track of time. So I went through ABCDE courses and then BCDE again, and many other Hebrew courses, because I'm diving deeply into the Hebrew grammar. And one day I'll go to the Hebrew University when I feel like I'm ready to go and dive in. But nevertheless, I digress. So when I was in my second course, my instructor, he was a Cohen. He was a priest, and he was in Jerusalem. He actually did the Torah reading every Monday. So he was the first one to teach us about the Song of the Sea. Now, the Song of the Sea is older than what it appears to be. It's older, and it's been written way before it was ever sung. Now, it uses a word that has the root Zayin Mem Resh, and you can call it Zamar, but it's Zayin Mem Resh. Now, this word, he said that he and some of the other the Kohanim, the priests, believe that it means power of God singing. I can't dive into that. That's a whole nother teaching.
Power singing.
The power of singing, right? Power of God singing. Ladies and gentlemen, the first song, when Yehovah says in 3 times in Isaiah and 3 different times in Revelation, he says, I'm the first and the last, the beginning and the end, and the ending is formed out of the beginning or called out of the beginning. The first song, my theory is, will be also the last song, because it represents Yeshua. He was in the beginning and he's going to be at the ending. And this is the reason why the Song of the Sea should be the song of the 144,000. Now, I go into a lot of the grammar, a whole bunch of grammar in the book, guys, because there's been some changes to it and so forth. That's my argument, as well as Dr. Mansfield's argument. And so pretty phenomenal stuff, Brian. Unfortunately, though, we're out of time.
Oh,
we're out of time, guys. But I want to thank you guys for joining us today. Brian, thank you for coming on with me today.
Thank you for having me.
And so we are going to have to close up. You guys, it's great to see you. And I'm going to send you back behind the scenes, and I'm going to start our ending. So love you guys, and we will see you next week. Hey, Melody, my friend Melody, is going to be coming next week, and she's going to be talking about more deliverance things. So see you on the other side, guys.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hugi, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.